She can hear everything.
I didn't know, I didn't listen to your message. I just called, and then I went back. I didn't know who you were when I called you back. I thought it was Janet asking. And then later, I finally figured it out.
Paul, can you ask if I can use one of her pens?
Do you have an extra pen?
Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome to the October 3rd Board of Selectmen meeting. Would you join me, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to notify everybody that this is being broadcast live by Chelmsford Telemedia. Is there anybody else in the room that's broadcasting any part of this meeting? No? Okay, thank you. Public service announcements? What do we have here? I don't see any. Do you? Okay. Open session.
Oh, actually,
Oh.
I have some announcements that I got from the Board of Health meeting. It's sort of appropriate for
Okay.
this session versus the liaison meeting.
Right.
Sorry.
Go to the big mic.
I would like to announce that there will be a youth substance abuse seminar on Wednesday, October 19th, from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Performing Arts Center at the high school, presented by Leanne Dodge. It is basically they're going to. It's a similar presentation that's going to be presented to the students earlier in the week, and it's for parents on Wednesday the 19th. So I'm going to have information I'll leave up there. Also, it is flu season again, and the town of Chelmsford will be offering flu vaccinations Thursday, October 13th, from 3:30 to 7 p.m., and also Thursday, November 17th, from 4 to 7 p.m. for ages 3 and older. So the first session, the Thursday, October 13th session is for ages 65 and older from 3:30 to 4:30, and 4:30 to 3 is for those 3 years and older. So I'm going to leave these up.
Whereabouts is it?
It is, sorry about that, it is held at the Chelmsford Senior Center.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Is there anybody else like to speak under open session?
Hello. I wasn't sure. My name is Jennifer Salmon, and I'm speaking on behalf of the teachers about the health insurance, and I wasn't sure if now I should speak or wait for it to come up on the agenda.
No, it was good.
Might as well. You're here.
Okay.
Would you like to hear what the proposal is first before we?
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you, whatever's easier.
I don't think we have a proposal.
There is no. I want Paul to straighten that out, and we can save a lot of time.
Okay.
The email what the board is doing for the third time since the implementation of municipal health insurance reform is to initiate the process provided for under Section 19 of the law to begin discussions regarding a change in the town's health insurance plan. How this process works is we had to provide advance notice of at least 2 calendar days, and we certainly did at least that, to each of the bargaining units and to the retiree association representative, that the board would be taking up this matter this evening under the provisions of Chapter 32B, Section 21 and 23. if that vote is taken this evening, then basically it then initiates the process that begins with the Insurance Advisory Committee, in which a presentation will be made, and that tentative date for that meeting is the 18th at 3:30, which is a Tuesday afternoon. And at that point, there'd be a presentation made that would indicate potential health insurance savings and coverage design plans over the next 12-month period upon either a change in the plan or the transition of the town from the plan we have now into the Massachusetts Group Insurance Commission. After that meeting with the Insurance Advisory Committee, we would then provide notice to the each of the bargaining units, as well as to the Retiree Association representative, to basically notify us who their representative is into what's known as a Public Employee Committee under the state statute. And within that notice, we would again provide notice of the meeting with them with at least 5 days' notice to begin that process. And what that does under the law is it establishes a 30-day period of which to discuss the changes. And that, again, that goes in terms of plan design change, co-payments, network providers, and so forth, as well as, again, the projected anticipated savings as a result of such changes, as well as mitigation that would be posed with such change. And again, under the provisions of the state law, there's a 30-day negotiating period. The hope is that the parties can reach agreement, as we have on 2 prior occasions, on plan design change. And then if not, then it comes back to the town, in which the town does have the right to move forward with those changes. So that's sort of what it is. So when you heard earlier this evening that there is no proposal on the agenda this evening, that is correct. Tonight is the notice that the board's going to implement the process. And then again, more information will be coming on the 18th, and then after that with the Insurance Advisory Committee, and then after that with the Public Employee Committee. And again, I think it just follows the same process that we did on 2 prior occasions. The reason it's being done now is we are currently in the 3rd and final year of our prior agreement. And as I said, as was the case 3 years prior to that, we are now initiating the process to see how we can move forward. And obviously the reason to move forward is basically because of the increase in costs of municipal health insurance, probably just health insurance in general, but and as the board's aware, and we have in our packet this evening and is available online, we're being told to expect at this point an 11.5% increase in the town's health insurance. And why that matters to a community such as Chelmsford is we pay 75% of the premium for active employees, and 63% for retirees. And right now, the town it's the second largest budgetary expenditure in the community behind education. And right now, we spend over $10 million per year. And so obviously, if you start looking at a 10% or 11%, half percent increase, you can obviously see the numbers are well over $1 million. So that's the long-winded way of saying what
Absolutely.
we're doing. And I know you were not the representative the 3 years ago when this came up, but we did work effectively. And as you're probably aware, as your reps may have told you, the vote from the unions is a weighted vote. And obviously the teachers union has the largest proportionate share of that vote. So obviously it's a very prominent position to be in terms of you as their representative.
Thank you. So I think that I'm going to read a statement to you. So I was aware that you're voting on whether or not to then kind of discuss the options available. So I'm going to start. The CFT would like to thank you for the opportunity to make a statement regarding the proposed change in health insurance providers. For the past 6 years, the board has voted to make changes to the town's health insurance. These changes have a tremendous impact on the lives of those town employees who carry our health insurance. We ask you to take a step back and pause for a moment and ask yourself the following question. Would you select the healthcare providers that we're looking at for your own families? If you would not choose it for your own families or self, we then ask you, why is it acceptable to be ours? Our nurses, teachers, guidance counselors, psychologists, support staff, firefighters, policemen and women are just some of the many individuals who will be affected by this change. By voting once again to change our health insurance puts these people in situations where they could question whether they are able to bring a sick or injured child to the ER. Voting to approve this change puts many people in situations where they are unable to pay for essential medical care. When are we as a town going to reevaluate our values? Mr. Salapoli, a member of our school committee, stood before the school personnel on opening day and announced that our children, the children of Chelmsford, are the most prized possession, our greatest asset. When do we start supporting the people who directly work with them each day? We as a town need to value the people in it. Otherwise, people and families are not going to want to work here, much less live here. While the town may see some cost savings at the expense of all its workers, your vote to change our health insurance will take away Chelmsford's ability to have local control in the future. The CFT will not argue that we need to spend our money efficiently and effectively. However, hurting those who support the students, children, and residents and employees in this town is not the answer. We need to utilize the thousands of people who make up this town and come up with creative ideas on ways to save and spend money. We refuse to believe that the answers are not all around us. We must put an end to working against one another and start working together. We need to stop hurting groups of people to appease others. Our community should not accept anything less. We need to find solutions to these issues, whether it is our health insurance for towns or full day kindergarten. Whatever the goal, we ask you to remember why you ran for these positions. Do you want to improve this town? Do you want to support not only the children, but the people who live and work here? If the answer is yes, then we are asking you to vote no on changing our health insurance again. It's time to change our mindset in Chelmsford, and it's time to start working together to improve our town and provide for the people in it, but not at the expense of the employees. Thank you.
I appreciate the thought, but I
We can
don't.
take it up under the agenda right
Yeah,
away.
I mean, we really don't have anything in
Anything
front
to
of us.
decide, except
Yeah.
that we're gonna do it.
Initiate the process, and I would
We
just,
have it on the
and when we get to the agenda thing, we can explain what the plan that the town has, you know.
Okay. Christine?
Good evening. My name is Chris Bowman. I'm a Precinct 4 rep, and I live at 3 Julio Street in town. At the last planning board meeting, September 28th, I presented a handout to the planning board for suggested revisions to the Route 129 Business Amenities Overlay District. And what I have here tonight is an update of that, taking into consideration all the 3 planning board meetings and the discussions that went back and forth. So I'll hand these out now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a joint effort between myself and Kathy Bovier to bring this to your attention and for your consideration. The primary purpose of this, along with most of the sentiments that the previous speaker was talking about, in working together and improving the town, but not at the expense at any given population within the town. The town is a residential community, and it can be made stronger and better by keeping the strength that the town has as a residential community. So one of the things that I found was not in the original proposed zoning is there was no definition for business amenities. Now, Kathy and I went out and we looked at a number of different office parks in Chelmsford and Westford. We went to Burlington, we went to Hingham, we went to Littleton, we went to Braintree. And we were trying to get a sense of what exists in this area and what exists closer to Boston. The idea, as I understand it, is to provide office parks that are similar or at least comparable to what's available in and around Boston, in order to encourage businesses to come here and to show that they can get the same services or more in a residential center, in a residential community that will benefit them as employers as well as their employees. Now, one of the things we did find is that most of the buildings are actually 2 stories. 97 to 98% are 2 stories. There are a lot more frequent 3 stories, and along Route 129, the highest buildings are 3 stories. 4 stories a little more rare, but they are more prevalent the closer you get to Boston. And in Westford, they do have one 4-story commercial building along 110, but 1.5 of the stories is actually below street level. So they lowered its profile, even though it's a 4-story building. And the rest of the buildings in there were either, I think there were a couple of 3 stories, and the rest of them were 2-story buildings. Now, in this process, I spoke to a commercial leasing agent in Braintree, and I asked, what are the current trends that employers are looking for in order to recruit and retain their talent? And basically what I was told, typically what is looked for is lots of natural lighting, fitness center, daycare, cafes with outdoor seating, coffee bars, and essentially some unique amenities. For instance, the business park in Braintree, their cafe does have pizza ovens, so people were thrilled they didn't have to go out for pizza, and also physical therapy. But the whole idea is to provide these business amenities within the office buildings and within the office park in order to preclude their employees going out on town roads in order to get something to eat or to work out or care for their children. So with that in mind, what Kathy and I did was on the attachment show what the existing proposed zoning is, and then striking out those aspects and then putting in italicized suggestions in order to emphasize business amenities within the office parks. Since employers are looking for these amenities within the office parks, that's where the focus should be in order to encourage them to come here. So part of that includes changing the name from Route 129 Business Amenities Overlay District to Route 129 Office Park Business Amenities Overlay District, obviously to show that the emphasis and focus is within the office parks themselves. Also within here is, consistent with that, is the definition for business amenities, which includes fitness center, daycare, cafes, and things of that nature. And in going through the proposed regulation under use regulations, some of the items that were listed as existing within the CEIOD, and in checking that table, they were not actually existing there. So that starts on page 2, and then off to the side, what we did was we showed where it was permitted and by what method, PB for planning board or BA for the zoning board of appeals. So in this way, there were originally 9 items. Those 9 items become 4. The exclusion zone was changed because multiple family housing is not included in the IA. and is not something that you would put in as a business amenity within the office park itself. And then items that would be by special permit include those that are expected business amenities within the office parks that are currently not permitted within an underlying light industrial zone area. And some of those would be the cafes with outdoor seating, banking or financial agency services, not banks, but services. Similar to what Hannaford has, they have banking services within the store. So people can come in, they can deposit, they can withdraw, they can do simple things. So the typical type of thing that you would do day to day. And also the possibility of an in-conference center. Right now, Westford Regency is an inn-and-conference center. It does have a restaurant. It does do catering. It has large banquet halls. But it also has an auditorium for 90 to 100 seats. And it's very nice, very nicely done. The other one that's close by is in Cross Point. They have, I believe, 435 seats in their auditorium. So something in the middle. Oh, and also UMass Lowell. UMass Lowell has large conference rooms. They do have a restaurant that does catering, but they do not have an auditorium. So that is a possibility to consider. With the UMass Lowell in Conference Center, they have 2 floors of basically hotel rooms. And they have 31 in all. So these are some of the things that we're recommending in order to focus on business amenities within the office park, which is what employers will be looking for their employees. They're not looking to go on town roads. They want to minimize the amount of travel time. And the employees don't want to travel too far out either, so that they can get these things within the office park itself. One of the things that a lot of the office parks do have is a lot of interconnected roads, so that you don't have to go onto the town road in order to get from one section to another. You can, at least on one side of the road, you can travel within the office parks and get from one area to the other very quickly. So one suggestion that was made, recognizing that the Cross Point Towers have or had at least one developer when it was put into place. So it's a lot easier to get things done or to complete things with one developer. The same thing is true of the Braintree Hill Office Park. There's one developer, Flatley. Here, we don't have, is my understanding, that we don't have one developer for the office parks. There are multiple developers. So the suggestion is to collaborate with those developers and work together and come up with solutions that'll benefit the developers and will benefit the town in seeking employers that are desirable to come in here and provide more jobs. Since Kronos left, then those types of jobs we want to replace. But at the same time, we don't want to degrade Route 129 either. In part of the purpose and intent is to preserve and enhance the aesthetics of Route 129. So maintaining buildings at the 3-story level, which is the maximum height on Route 129 right now, would be consistent with that. And I'd like to shift your attention to the last 2 pages on the handout. I went to the Westford zoning bylaws, and this is the most recent table I was able to find on their zoning. So items 6 and 7 show the maximum height in feet and then the maximum stories. If you look across this table, if I can look across this table here, the maximum height is 40 feet and the maximum stories are 4 stories. So in Chelmsford, our 4 stories are 45 feet. So I guess we have a little bit higher 4-story buildings than Westford does. But Westford was called out as a major competitor of Chelmsford in the PowerPoint. And we also found that the majority of their buildings is 2 stories, the vast majority, 97, 98%. They have more frequent 3 stories and then that just one-story building. So the purpose for bringing this out, and also by taking Lowell out of the equation, because it's a city, it's expected to have high-rise buildings. Residential communities are not. All along Route 3, the tallest buildings, with the exception of Lowell, would be Burlington, and then up in Nashua. And then traveling from Route 3 onto 128 South, the majority of the buildings were 3 and 2 stories. There were some 4 stories here and there, but the majority, again, is still 3 and 2 stories. And then today I had an occasion to count the number of floors on Route 128 between Route 3 and 93, and the majority of the tallest buildings are 7 stories. And I did see at least an 8-story housing building in Burlington. So pretty much 6-story buildings, a high-rise, are relegated to cities and many cities, not residential communities. And it doesn't belong here. We don't need it. We don't need to do a mini Crosspoint. We just need to be Chelmsford. By staying Chelmsford and building on this unique aspect of the town, which is our strength, and by working together in collaboration with the developers and what they can do, they can renovate. The Braintree Hill Office Park buildings were built in the 1980s. Kathy and I went out there to see how they have updated it. Well, they added more natural lighting. They added more light, either more skylights or more frontage lights, depending upon how the sun hit the buildings. And most of the buildings also included, and they also had large atriums. And on the back, they also included more glass and atrium to enhance the aesthetics of these buildings, and so people would like to come to work. They also changed the materials inside. They updated the textures. They made it look modern. And when Kathy and I were working in one of these buildings, there were major companies. Boston Edison had 2 full floors. And in the building we were in, there was maybe 2 or 3 companies total. Now, what they have done is renovated so that they have individual offices for at least a couple of dozen companies, if not more. They did it tastefully, they did it well, they did it very well, and it looks like a modern building. They've also added a lot of mini parks where people can sit outside, which is also an enhancement, as well as walking trails and running trails. So that's pretty much the gist of it. The other thing that was mentioned is that LEED buildings, using LEED principles and practices, are becoming more and more prevalent in the buildings in and around Boston and just outside of Boston. I think it would be good, at least for the future, for Chelmsford, for any further development that is down in the commercial buildings, to try to encourage the developers to use these practices. It'll make the buildings more modern for a longer period of time, and at the same time, they'll save money on electricity and water and heating and cooling. They'll improve the aesthetics of the building. The employees are actually more productive in these buildings, and there's less sick time. And in the cafes, one of the things that was specifically mentioned was a variety of foods. For instance, in the Braintree Hill Office Park, they had 3 different cafes for 3 different styles of food. In the Cross Point, they had one large cafeteria with 3 different, maybe 3 or 4 different stations that provided different types of food. So variety was part of the key. And I thank you for listening. And again, the emphasis is on business amenities in the office parks in order to encourage developers to come out here and to also retain the aesthetics of Route 129 as it is and the town as a whole. Instead of looking at this as a section of the town, it should be looked at as a part of the town. In other words, it is part of the whole. It's not segmented and treated differently from the town. Route 129 is still part of Chelmsford. It should be treated that way. And that means retaining its characteristics as a residential community. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have any questions for her? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I've heard your presentation twice. I was at the planning board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And both times, I've tried to figure out what your message is. It seems to be that on one hand, you're saying height is an important consideration, or anti-height is an important consideration of what you're proposing. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm proposing to keep Route 129 consistent with what exists at 3 stories, and that 6-story buildings in general in Chelmsford is totally out of place, is unneeded, and is contrary to the residential character of the town.
All right. Maybe I can offer a contrasting point.
Okay.
The businesses and the facilities that are out there have been there for quite a long time. They haven't changed much in many years. And over the years, nobody out there has put any money into improving their facilities, per se, in terms of what you're talking about. Lots of glass, more amenities, parks, better landscaping, and so forth. More things to make the average worker's day a little brighter, let's say.
Right.
Nobody has done that.
Understood.
Why?
Why have the developers not kept up their buildings?
Because that's what the planning board and the Economic Development Commission are trying to address on trying to find a way to either encourage the existing landowners to improve, or to say, you know, they're not going to do anything, so it's going to have to be someone who comes in after them, buys them out, and then develops it. But to develop it, they're going to need to have a bigger footprint to amortize those costs of development.
Well, this is why I attempted to make the point that I understand with one developer, it's a whole different thing than when you have several developers in one office park. So I believe that collaboration amongst those developers and showing that working together, just like the previous speaker said on the issue she was addressing, it's still the same message. Coming together to meet those goals can be done. It has been done. It can be done again. It's the willingness of the developers to do it. Now, Westford doesn't seem to have a really big issue with this. But apparently there's a big issue in Chelmsford, which I don't really understand. The biggest difference I saw between the Westford office parks and the Chelmsford office parks is that there was more interconnectedness in the Westford office parks, and they also seem to have more dedicated area. So when they built the office parks, they built it with that intention in mind, and so it shows more. But in driving around the office parks in Chelmsford, the buildings are in good shape. They look good. A lot of them do have atriums. A lot of them do have glass frontage. They don't have as much as they could, but I think a better example of that would be the buildings in Quorum Park. They have a lot of glass frontage. They have a more modern-looking building. The setting is more park-like. So in Quorum Park, I don't know who the developer is, but that developer had more vision in what he was doing. Instead of having separate entities going their own way and everybody losing, it seems to me that one place to start would be to bring all those developers together, to collaborate with them in order to get everybody moving in the same direction for the same goal, encouraging companies from Boston and in and around Boston to bring their businesses here. Because the office parks have or can have, with commitment from this collaboration, to do it. But it seems like that is something that can be done right now without shifting over to development, strictly for development's sake. I think a lot more can be done with the existing resources that haven't been broached yet.
Seems like you put a lot of work in. We appreciate it, Chris. Does anybody else
Well,
have
thank you
any
very much.
Does anybody else have any questions?
All set?
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Okay, take care. Anybody else like to speak in public, open session?
Debbie Derry, Precinct 6 rep. I'll make it brief because I listened to her at a planning board meeting. There's something that I got a big kick out. I told someone earlier today. I was listening to WCAP in the morning. I've been listening the last week or so. And last Thursday and Friday, they were talking about Stedman Street in Chelmsford. And I went to a doctor's appointment last week, and it was for 8 o'clock. So I live on Stedman Street, bottom, and I was driving down Stedman Street, and I was looking at the cars stopped on the opposite side of the street. And it was backed up, stopped, beyond Smith Street. Now, that's quite a distance. And I'm saying, this appointment's at 8 o'clock in the morning. I've done this before for a 7:30 appointment on 129 for my house. I was 15 minutes late. So I can tell you how bad the traffic is. I agree with the 129 concept. I don't care if they put the buildings 20 feet high, because I have lived here for over 41 years, and I remember when Hewlett Packard and Wayne had all those buildings filled. All those buildings were filled. My traffic wasn't any worse than what it is right now. But I will tell you, what we're being used for right now with all these empty buildings is a cut-through town. They're cutting through our town, but they're not working in our town. So if we can get the developers to come in and invest in our town to bring in the business, then it's worth having the backup trapper. And maybe the people that are driving through Methuen, getting off the highway, that are cutting through our town are from Nashua, maybe they won't anymore. Maybe we'll just get the people that work within our town. But I think the concept is good. The buildings are old. It really is in its own way, its own separate section of town. Although I know we are a community, and I don't like to see us go in business to say we're a city. But that area of town is really a separate section of town. It's all business. So, I don't know. I look forward for them developing that area and also for the revenue. We really could use the revenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
How many nights of town meeting, Bob?
Marilyn Supple, 219 Billerica Road. And I won't take too long, but I too don't believe in these 6-story buildings, story-high buildings. I think that's a little too high because I think this is the gateway to Chelmsford. But what I also wanted to say is, I don't know how to really put this. I'd like to see the overlay stop where the 2 lanes begin. So you just have the amenity overlays from Alpha Road back to the highway and not going all the way up into the 2-lane area of Billerica Road. It is only 2-lane. There isn't really that much property on there to be developed, but I would like to see at least the main, the abutting of Billerica Road eliminated for amenities so that it can keep it more on the quaint side and not have all the traffic and not some amenity sneaking itself in. Especially where I do live on there, and I just wanted to mention that and think about that seriously so that we don't. You have probably 300 or 400 acres back in all the other area in which to develop before you started moving up on the face of Billerica Road going into the center. And because the yellow farmhouse, it was my house and a couple houses, and the yellow farmhouse was my grandfather's house, and where I live was part of his farm. So I've lived on Billerica Road my whole life, and of course I've seen a lot of changes there. But I still think it's a peaceful ride from the center till you get to the first set of lights, and I'd kind of like to see it stay that way without having amenities put in that section. So I'd like you to think about that, and nothing has been done to protect the residents on Billerica Road, myself and my 2 neighbors. I think it probably still stands at the same thing as a 100-foot setback. I don't think that's going to probably change, but I would like to see it go even further than that. I don't know whether 200 or 300 or 500-foot setback from, so the residents don't get pushed into this, even though there isn't very much land there. If you really take a walk down, you'll notice if you start at Alpha Road and go to the center, there's not much space, not really much frontage, basically just the residents and maybe Community Tree and his brother with the lawnmower service, and that's really it. But to squeeze something in there, but I'd like to see something done for us, on Turnpike Road, they gave them a sort of a buffer zone so that, they protected them, but for the people that are directly on it, there is nothing. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak under open session? Nobody else? Okay. Then we can hit committee vacancies, please.
Okay, as of today, the following committees have vacancies. There's 1 vacancy on the Board of Appeals, 1 vacancy on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, 1 vacancy on the Civic Committee, several vacancies on the Cultural Council, 3 vacancies on the Energy Conservation Committee, 1 vacancy on the Historic Commission, 1 vacancy on the Public Celebrations Committee, 1 vacancy on the Recycling Committee, and 2 vacancies on the Tree Committee. If you have an interest in applying for any of these committees, you can fill out an application online on the town website or come into the town manager's office and fill out a hard copy application. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Next, we have a public hearing for Verizon poll petition on Progress Avenue. Is anybody here from Verizon? Come up to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Bill Wallace. I'm here representing Verizon on this petition. The petition is for a new pole to be set on Progress Ave in the area where they're working on a new pumping station. The pole is necessary so they can remove an existing pole that's in the way, and pole 11-1. I don't see it on that sketch, but it's basically in this area here. The new pole is going to be over in this area. And it's just a matter of eliminating one pole because it's in the way of their construction activity.
Well, I think if you go to
Pretty
the next page,
straightforward.
it has the one where... with
Yeah,
the-
here's the-
it's removed.
So this is the existing pole. There's some pumping equipment right in this area. This will be eliminated. This is the new pole that's going to be placed. It's in that cul-de-sac area. Pretty straightforward.
So it's a pretty minor situation, right?
Yeah. There's
The only purpose of the other pole to feed this?
currently it's feeding that. There's some pumping equipment that's right there. That equipment's needs to get moved, and so the pole has to move out of the way and move over. It's pretty straightforward.
I see the town engineer recommends it, so does anybody have any?
It's
Yeah, I have-
it's the town's project. We're doing the
Yeah.
sewer pump station.
Paul, why do they have to move something? It's an existing pump station. I thought they were just increasing the size of the hole, so
Yeah,
to speak.
well, it had to do with the fact that you're trying to keep the system running while you're putting in the new system. So there, like, as he noted, it's just adjacent to it. And in order to do it and fit it in the area and keep everything running, they had to move it next door, and that's the reason to relocate the pole. But it's fine.
Then the existing pole will be taken out.
Right.
Yeah, when?
I can't answer that.
It's a legitimate question.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Well, once everything's get transferred, not before everything is transferred off.
I
of it.
expect that once everything's transferred, it will come down,
Okay.
because that's a pet peeve in this town.
Are there any other questions? Any other comments? No? Having none.
This is a public hearing, so,
You want to close the?
well, you wanna ask
Oh,
if
is anybody in
anybody-
the audience like to come up and comment on, or make a statement regarding this petition?
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the Verizon poll petition dated August 25th, 2016, number 1A1 TB0, it looks like, for a single pole to be installed on Progress Avenue and another one removed.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Town manager reports?
Yeah, real brief this evening, that we were just at this table a week ago. I think the thing to note that I want to report and just remind folks is 2 weeks from this evening, sort of from a lot of the discussion this evening, remind people, 2 weeks from this evening on 7 p.m. at the Senior Center, we'll be convening the fall annual town meeting
7:30.
on this, at 7:30 p.m. On the 17th of October. The 162 reps will be there to take up the 15 articles for consideration. However, as we remind people at all these occasions, any registered voter of the town can attend and participate in the discussion. And then obviously the representatives will cast their votes at the end of the discussion and vote. So that's our big effort. Related to that, there will be a town meeting information session, as is customary, a week from this Wednesday, November 12th at 7 p.m. at the North Town Hall.
12?
No, October 12th. Did I say November?
Oh, yeah.
I'm
That's
sorry.
all right.
Wednesday, October 12th at 7 p.m. at the North Town Hall. And again, we'll we'll review the warrant. And also, just to point that out, the Finance Committee booklet just came out from the printers today, which has a copy of the warrant and their recommendations and report for the fall session of the town meeting. This report is available online at the town's website, www.townofchelmsford.us. And again, representatives will receive their copies either at the office, or they can obviously pick them up at the night of the town meeting. So that's our big focus at this point is finalizing your recommendations this evening. We'll complete the drafting of motions with town council, the information session, then town meeting. If as expected, town meeting is to continue beyond Monday, the 17th of October. It will reconvene as per custom on Thursday evening, the 20th at 7:30 p.m., and then would continue Mondays and Thursdays until the business is completed for the session. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You.
Paul, since this is probably our last televised meeting this month and until, close to the election day, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the early voting. I know Honorina has tried to publicize that a lot, but
And she keeps publicizing it. And the good news is the media is now picking up as well. There's a story in today's local media about the availability of early voting, which is taking place, I think it's the 24th of October. The early voting will begin. This is a new process for this state election regarding, obviously, the presidential selection. People can come and vote anytime from that period up until the Thursday before the election, and cast their ballots during normal business hours, as they will have extended hours the Saturday prior to the completion of the deadline. And also there'll be evening hours as well on that Wednesday evening. In addition to there's a different deadline. This is where it gets confusing. There's also absentee balloting, which actually goes beyond the early voting period, which is up until noon on Monday, the day before the election, in the clerk's office. And in fact, the clerk will also be open that Saturday before the election from 9 to 12 to assist those with absentee ballots. So the key thing is again, they're trying to make it more convenient for people to vote, encourage participation so people can come and vote, obviously, in that period prior to the election. And we also think that will obviously help with the turnout capacity and parking and lines and so forth, because unlike the town election or the primary election that we had several weeks ago where there was a 6% turnout, this one tends to be up around 70% turnout. So again, the easiest thing to do would be to come in to the clerk's office during normal business hours or during one of the extended hours. And again, if there's any questions, they can contact the clerk's office or go onto the town's website, and the information is all there. The state has sent out a guideline and mailed to every household the guideline for voting, so it does show you the ballot questions, because that's the other question that people will see, is it's not just the presidential election and the Congress seat and governor's council and so forth. There are 4 ballot questions, again, and there's information on those questions in the directory. And again, that's online as well, the state. So the key thing, as you noted, is we are heading into that period, because you're right, after this evening, because next Monday's a legal holiday, and then we've got the town meeting, which could go into 3 sessions, which would take up 2 additional Mondays, and then Halloween's the last Monday of this month. You're right, it will be on the cusp of the election next time this board holds a regularly scheduled meeting in this room. Thank you.
Paul, where are the voting booths going to actually sit?
They're actually going to be sitting next door in room 205, so that will be the designated polling place. And the reason for that selection is, one, is it's in close proximity to the clerk's office, so if someone comes in, asks where would I vote, they can either go up the stairs or up the elevator. It's obviously accessible for people, who have physical limitations. They can come in through the side entrance and so forth. But the voting location will be in 205 next door. So again, it will be. We'll try to make it as convenient and comfortable as we can for folks.
Yeah, someday when we have some extra money, we should fix that elevator so it answers faster and moves maybe a little faster. I mean, George can even attest to that.
Yeah, it's a slow-moving elevator. It does
He's
work.
jumping up and down because he says it's a secret trick.
Right.
But it is slow, and it doesn't come when called sometimes.
So.
Anyway.
An old dog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Number 7, discussion and vote of engaging in the process to change health insurance benefit or transfer to the Group Insurance Commission under GLC 32B sections 21 through 23. Glenn, you have to,
Paul, you are a member, you get your health benefits from the town?
Yes, I do.
Right, as do I, as a
Right.
retiree.
Right, but
Should I leave for this?
yes, you should recuse yourself as a member of the board for this vote.
Okay.
I'm not held to the same standard as an elected official
don't
in the
vote.
community. I don't vote. But I do receive the benefit, and I have my family on it as well. As I don't want to repeat what was said earlier in the discussion, the bottom line is this is again the process that the town has utilized on 2 prior occasions since the adoption of municipal health insurance reform. The town's current plan, for those who aren't aware, we have a Blue Cross product. We offer HMO Blue, and it's an indemnity type plan. It's called a PPO, and we also have an HMO product. And then retirees have a Blue Cross product as well. And I believe that the current benefits are we know the benefits are in keeping with municipal benefits because under the current agreement that expires this year, the town's level of benefits in terms of co-payments and deductibles and coverages mirrors that of the Group Insurance Commission, which is the state's program that's also available to municipalities, municipal governments. And in fact, our plan mirrors the most subscribed plans in the HMO and product. And so and that has been consistent over the 6 years that we've been under this law. And then the question as to whether that's comparable to those outside of government, well, I would invite people to go online and look at our benefit level. And I think that we still see many people who seek employment in municipal government because of the benefits that are offered, particularly in the areas of health insurance. So again, what this evening is it's not a vote to implement a plan, it's a vote to implement a process. And as I said, if the board were to vote affirmatively this evening, we will be sending out notices midweek to convene a Group Insurance Commission meeting on October 18th, at which we'll present information to the members of the Insurance Advisory Committee, which basically consists of representatives of each of the town's labor unions, as well as a non-union employee and also a retiree representative. And then after that discussion, the next step would be the Public Employee Commission, which is established under the statute, which is basically that same group of representatives, except there's not a non-union member. So it's basically the groups send their representatives, but there is not a non-union rep under the provisions of the state law. And again, we have a 30-day process in which we negotiate in good faith. And again, I would just remind the board, as in previous occasions, the town has successfully completed those negotiations on 2 prior occasions without having to implement under the law, and I don't have any expectations that it would be different this time.
so every union will be represented in
Yes.
this committee?
Yeah, and it's a weighted vote under the Public Employee Committee. So therefore, a larger union would have more votes and it's proportionate as opposed to a union that has 3 members. So it's a weighted vote in that situation.
So the school department has,
Yeah, the largest group, right. Obviously, the teachers group has the largest vote in that. In essence, they carry the day. into that
And I'm sure
process.
there will be other options besides the GIC,
Right,
correct?
exactly, and that's what I said. The comparison will include a comparison to the Group Insurance Commission. As I mentioned earlier, if you noted, our plans mirror that of the benchmark plan. What is different is, and why the employees have chosen not in previous occasions to go into the Group Insurance Commission plan, unlike the city of Lowell, which has gone there, and some other communities, is that the employees in the previous occasions have expressed a preference to continue to have a Blue Cross product. The Group Insurance Commission does not offer Blue Cross. The Group Insurance Commission offers health plans such as Tufts, Harvard Pilgrim, Fallon, and other providers, but it does not offer Blue Cross. So again, those will be the discussions. And I would remind the board that if such a change were to take place, as was in previous occasions, there is a mitigation provision under the statute where 25% of the anticipated cost savings is mitigated to the employees for result of that transition. And again, we've implemented that successfully in prior occasions as well.
and who picks the representative? Each union picks
Each
their own?
union picks their own representative. Right.
Anybody have any comments?
I mean, it's probably a stupid question, but What if we didn't vote?
Okay.
What would happen? Could the process go on, or would just
No,
stop
well,
flat?
if you do not implement the vote this evening to engage the process provided for under Chapter 32B, Sections 21 to 23, then you're left with the prior standard, which was you could collectively seek to bargain it with every bargaining unit individually. However, if you don't get every individual unit, you don't get the agreement. And if many of you who were in this process over a half dozen years ago, that failed. We had attempted to do that prior to the implementation of the state law. That failed, and there were no changes. So what that would mean today is you'd have the same option, and then if that didn't happen, and if you chose to do nothing, then our plan would continue to roll forward with the same co-payments, same plan design, and it could not be altered absent this process or by collectively bargaining everything.
But it would
So
go
what that's
up in-
right.
it
So
could
what,
go up
what,
in price.
what that's going to mean is the price will continue to escalate. And again, we are rated on our claims. So right now, the reason that we're seeking the rate increase that is being offered to us is because of the town's rate
rating.
experience and claims experience. And so that's how the change takes effect. And again, it comes down to, question of services. There's only so many dollars allowed to be levied under Proposition 2.5, and if it isn't this, it's going to go somewhere else. And when we sit here and agonize how we're going to fund full-day kindergarten, how we're going to fund extra policemen, extra teachers in the classrooms, and so forth, these are the choices that we have to consider when we make those difficult decisions.
Thank you.
Laura?
I just want to comment that I think it is standard practice in the private sector to go out and look at new plans every couple of years in order to try to keep the rates competitive. And I know that we just went through a similar process. I got a new insurance card this week. So I think that it's pretty standard.
You will sit?
Okay, yep.
Anybody else? You going to make a motion?
Yep. I'll make a motion that the town engage in the process to change the health insurance benefits or to transfer to the Group Insurance Commission as allowed under Mass General Law 32B, Sections 21 through 23.
I will second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. 4-0.
Let Glenn in.
Pardon?
Why don't you come back? I think George went to get him.
George is going to get him.
Okay, number 8, continuation of our recommendations from last week on, for Mr. Diggs.
Welcome back.
Before we start on new ones, Laura, you wanted a chance to discuss your vote on, let's see,
Article 5.
5.
For the modular classrooms. Yes, I've had, I've spent a lot of time to think about it, and I've also, had a chance to listen to how some of the other boards have voted, and I actually have a presentation, so I will be brief, but I
That, you voted against that article,
Right.
I
correct?
did.
I don't
Okay,
think
that was the 3-2. I just wanted, to make sure that people are aware that didn't see it last week or whatever.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if anyone else would like a copy. There's one here.
Which one is it, Laura?
Okay,
PDF or the
The-
PowerPoint?
the PowerPoint. I think either one will work.
Okay, I just want to...
They're identical. Okay, so basically, I've been really thinking hard about this. I understand, you know, the town has a drive to implement full-day kindergarten program and to get it in quickly, to at least begin the program by next September, which, based on the program that Mr. Lang has, or Dr. Lang has proposed, is an extremely aggressive hit-or-miss type of, we're going to have to hit in 2 weeks and just fly. One of the things that we have discussed at length is that full-day kindergarten programs are extremely expensive to implement, and if they weren't, we would have done it sooner. Many communities have nationwide jumped in to implement full-day kindergarten, only to have to drop services or implement fee-based programs when state and federal funding dry up. Most of the communities around us have also struggled to implement free full-day kindergartens. And if you notice on the first slide, most of the communities around us are charging some of the highest rates statewide in order to fund their kindergarten. I would like to propose an alternative plan to the 12 modulars that are being proposed in Article 55 that would avoid the need to purchase any modular classrooms this year and also allow Chelmsford schools to launch full-day kindergarten in September. Next slide shows that there are also schools around us, several schools that aren't even offering. So that's okay. So we have several schools here that, school systems that don't even have full-day kindergarten, and of the 5, other than 6, including Chelmsford, several of them are right near us. So the next slide shows basically what our forecasted population is for the current year and breaks down the classrooms by the number of classrooms that we have as in each room, and as well as how many students that we expect to put in each one of these classrooms. Now, I just want to state that I pulled all of these figures off of the Dora Whittier presentations. They're all available online on the school. And the last page of this presentation actually is the footnote, so that you can see I've got the footnotes in all of these figures. My proposal is to start with rather than purchase modular classrooms to start the kindergarten, we need to look at putting in a fee-based kindergarten program initially. To do that, we would split the kindergarten classes in half. Half of the students would remain on a half-day program. And the reason for that is because legally, when you put in a fee-based program, you also have to offer half-day kindergarten. If we do this program and we take half the students, instead of making them full-day kindergarten, and we make them half-day students, those students can continue to go to school in their neighborhood classrooms. The students that are on the full-day program would pay $4,000, and they would go to school in the Westland School. Now, the way I look at it, we can continue to keep the existing pre-K in the Westlands, move these full-day students into that as well, and there's still one classroom left over. And if you go to the next slide, you can see how that actually lays out. Now, I know that you may want to decide to put some pre-K on the second floor, kindergarten on the first. That's not my decision. That's where the schools can decide. The first time that this slide was presented to us by Dora Whittier, they actually moved the classroom walls here, which would have triggered all of the building expenses to renovate the whole building. It also made the building much smaller. It went from 16 classrooms to 12. So this whole proposal would be just a phase 1. Obviously, we want to extend the program, but this would allow us to launch it in September and give us some time to get our legs out from under us with this big assessment program. The next phase would be, next slide. And this kind of goes through all what happens. This program will mirror the surrounding towns. programs. It will provide $600,000 of revenue towards the currently unfunded operating costs of this program, because, as we heard from Mr. Souza last week in front of the FinCom, while we do have money in the capacity to pay for the kindergarten operating costs next year, it is very unclear where that money will come from in the following years. It alleviates some overcrowding in every single one of the elementary schools without a single building project in year one, and eliminates the need to squeeze 3 attached and/or detached pod projects at each elementary site in the next 9 months, essentially. I've looked at the plan where they're going to put these. Basically, they've just sort of dropped them on the edges of parking lots, which means that either children will be crossing parking lots, or they're going to have to rip up the entire site to handle this. There are established safety traffic flows around every one of the schools, and anyone who has children knows how tight those are already. This plan would give the district 1 to 5 years to develop a solid plan to implement 100% full-day kindergarten and still allow us to proceed with the MBA funding process, which is Article 6, in order to address the other achievement assessment identified needs. If you notice, based on, I just want this note on the bottom, the Whittier recommendations are 23 students per classroom. There seems to be a large class going through, so in this year I put in 24 students per classroom, but it fits just fine. We move to the next slide. So here's where we go into phase 2. Now, one thing that we could do is we could decide to scrap phase 1 altogether and go jump aggressively over to phase 2. There's nothing preventing us from doing this except money. And once the school has identified how to fund the rest of the school, the kindergarten program, we should begin to look at this. But basically, when I look at all of the different issues going on with the grammar schools, there's overcrowding. The overcrowding is based on a lot of the special needs programs that are going on, a lot of the special reading programs, math programs. They need to have some space to break out into these smaller groups, and there's a lot of overcrowding because of this. So what I propose in phase 2 is to open up the Westland schools as a school. Ironically, I stood in front of the town meeting representatives for the first time 10 years ago and pleaded with them not to close the Westland schools. Now I'm here proposing that we find a way to open it again, not only because we need the space to implement this program, but as we progress for the next 10 years, we are going to need to expand into that space. So this second program will do that. And if you look at the next few slides, it shows how the students would fit into the classrooms through each of those. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, you can. So here you can see we're looking at the Byam School. What you can notice here is there's extra classrooms that come out when you do it this way, that they will start to have a little bit more relief. They'll be able to find that breakout space. And in each of the schools, I've allowed space for the music program, the art program, as well as some breakout space for them. So you're welcome to look through all of these. The only issue that I find, and when I get to the end of this, is I have one pre-K class that doesn't really fit into the Westlands anymore. And, maybe we need to bring some of that program back into the high school, or maybe there's another way to do this. My final phase of the process, here we go. This is, so this basically, phase 2 will give us 10 years before we're exploding at the seams again. And still we can continue on with all the other 5 through 12 grades and the projects that need to happen there. When we, so the next slide, thank you, is the final phase of this, and we don't really need to start this until probably about 7, 8, 9 years from now. We're going to start to see some crunch, and so at that point, what we need to do is start looking at adding on to the center school, which is the only school that we have that's currently up to code, and it will not trigger a full renovation project like touching any of the other schools. We can either put an addition on at that point, go back to the modular idea, but at that point, we will have had a much better understanding about what's going on with the existing, with this assessment, because we'll be far enough into that process. And at no point do we really have to look back at the grammar schools. We can continue to look forward at what this assessment program proposal is going to be that we haven't even seen yet. So, I just want to, all these proposals alleviate crowding in the existing, that has been identified by Dore Whittier in these elementary schools. By the time we get to phase 2 and 3, we've alleviated all of the identified crowding problems. One of the issues that we saw with many of the proposals that Dore Whittier put forward, and I do want to thank them for all the work they did, because if you look at the last slide, I took all of their work, but they showed the classrooms as being inappropriate spaces in red. None of our classrooms right now, other than one in Byam that I can tell, are oversized. They are not in rooms where the square footage hits the MSBA current guidelines. But if you were to look statewide, nobody's classrooms are meeting those guidelines. And people aren't tearing down walls in these brick structures just to meet these new guidelines. I think what we need to do is to take advantage of our existing school inventory of buildings and reopen this school. By good fortune, Mr. Persichetti is here. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have any list off the top of your head of how many capital improvement projects or what the capital improvement projects have been at Westland Schools that we've been really maintaining this school all along?
Yeah, all of them have been.
But I mean, I don't know if people realize the significant investment that we've been putting. We closed the school 10 years ago, and maybe people don't really understand how many millions of dollars have gone into the upkeep over this time. You know, we really are still investing in it heavily for the intention that we can, you know, use this as for the needs that we have. Now, I've heard from school department why we can't do it, but I want to hear from the school department how we can open that school up again, because everything that Dore Whittier has put across to us is that we need more space. We don't need to build more space. People have a preference that children are in permanent buildings versus modular classrooms. We don't, basically, it just doesn't make sense to rush into Article 5 at this point when we have other options. We could take the first phase, charge for kindergarten, and think about it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. We'll come up with another plan. Another thing I would like to say is that putting 3 pods on these sites is going to wreak havoc on the existing properties themselves in terms of we're losing open space, we're going to have to completely redesign the safety traffic flows, and, you know, we're voting on another article, few articles later, which is to encourage our businesses to come up with ways to repurpose existing sites within the existing footprint, and I think we should hold the town to that standard whenever possible. Thank you. Yes.
Do you charge less than $200,000 would pay to Dore Whittier?
I could take a cut of it, but all the information that they provided was very helpful, and I could not have done it without that, but
All right.
this was the presentation I was expecting them to come back to us
Well,
with.
you've made a exhaustive study, obviously, and it's all around financial concerns. But part of what their study was about, and what I believe the school committee and the school administration were looking at, is not only the financial aspects of it, but what was best for the children.
Absolutely.
One of the problems that they found with the Westlands was that the rooms in the Westlands are, and pardon me if I get the numbers exactly wrong, but we're about 650 square feet each, when the standards now for a kindergarten are 1,200 square feet.
I understand that it would be ideal, but I also understand that it was operating as a perfectly good school up until a few years ago, and it did not affect, the fact that the classrooms were that size did not make it any less of a school either to this town or to the residents of this town that attended it.
Then there was another question about how do you deter the effects of taking the paid students and whisking them off over there by themselves?
They're not being whisked. Right now, they're being dropped off in daycare.
This is their viewpoint, as opposed to leaving them in the same school, and so they progress normally with their peers, so from grade to grade. They felt that was an important consideration.
I understand, and again, it would be ideal if we could house everyone in one location, certainly, and that's why we want to work to that. But it would also be ideal if the town had more money, and we need to handle our competing resource requirements. And so I empathize with the school, but I think that they draw a line in the sand when they said, we're going to do it by September 17, and we're going to do it for free, and we're going to do it with this proposal, and they have not been willing to give to get this program in that they are so desperate to get in. And I am showing a way to get this program in immediately and save the town basically almost $8 million. So,
and
and solves the long term. It has a short term and a long term solution to their problem, whereas they've provided us no solution.
Well, then there was a third consideration, and that was that the size of the enrollment was going to increase over the next 10 years through a natural cycle.
Absolutely.
And that not all those new students are going to be, they're going to be younger, but they're not necessarily going to be kindergarten people. So you'll have some coming in, families move in and they have two children and they have a new baby, and the baby will go to the old day kindergarten, but the others will be in elementary. And there needs to be some room to expand those classrooms, as you've indicated, that we're not above the red point in most cases. And that the plan that they put forward would accommodate that. So
they haven't proven it to me, whereas I've actually laid out the classrooms and showed you that not only do we have the space, we have the space to expand, and I mean, it's within our existing buildings. I haven't seen any plan from them other than buy me some pods. I don't understand why this plan wasn't even looked at so that we could have sat there in the assessment meeting and noted the merits of it, as opposed to being told that it was impossible based on a map that was redrawn before we got it.
Well, again,
I understand,
I'm not in the school department.
Mr. Diggs, and
but they had two considerations. One, I believe they ruled out the Westlands because of the size of the classrooms.
Yep.
They would have to take, let's say, 12 classrooms and turn it into 6, which wasn't enough. And the second consideration was that they made a decision, right or wrong, early on, that all-day kindergarten wasn't going to be fee-based.
I understand.
I'm not saying I agree with that.
And
I'm
again,
just
I
saying
think
that
that's what the
that's how
school
they came up with their
department
decision.
would want for if they could have everything. And now I'm saying you can have everything, but you're going to have to do it in increments. I don't see how the town can afford to pay for these modular classrooms cross their fingers they're actually going to be in place in September on time, because, again, there is no plan. They haven't done site testing, they haven't contacted architect, there's no plan. We're starting from scratch, and it is extremely difficult to come up with one building construction plan, never mind 4, and try to juggle them all and make sure that the kids are all, having
Well,
an education.
I would hope and
Not to
expect-
mention that I think looking at the MSB guidelines and using that as the reason why we're not having a classroom, I think that it sort of takes away from people who are homeschooling their children, from people that are in classrooms that are, I mean, they can look at the map. They can now look and say, oh, look, my kid's in one of the red classrooms. Does that mean they're not getting as good an education? I don't think the classroom size is important. I think the quality of the teacher is important. I think the quality of the program is important. And if we need to get this program to the kids sooner, I've got a plan to do it that's affordable.
Well, I expect and think that there will be a lot of discussion at town meeting about this.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that your take on this is going to carry weight with some people.
I hope so. This took a lot of work. Like I said, I spent several hours going through all of the documentation that was out on the school website. I encourage any of the people listening tonight to go and look up this information themselves and try to tell me if I got any of the numbers wrong. But right now, this looks like a no-brainer. Thank you.
Nice work. Well, when does the kindergarten become Chapter 70? After the first year? Is it after the
No,
first
it's covered under Chapter 70 right now.
Immediately.
Right, it's immediately. It's,
As long as it's no...
right, but you're half because you're half day, as opposed to full day numbers.
Or I don't know if you can amend that.
Okay, let's see. Okay, the first, we're gonna, obviously, we can't do anything with number 3,
The good thing is,
right? As far as the, here, we're on...
Collective bargaining, yep.
We're on some recommendations of the town meeting warrant articles, and we're talking about number 3, which is funding for collective bargaining. We can't, obviously, there's been no agreements made,
Right.
so we have to leave that tabled. The next one,
No, I didn't know if, based on Laura's presentation, if anybody wanted to reconsider Article 5.
I would make a
Was that
motion
your
to
intent?
reconsider the board's vote on Article 5.
you want to make the motion?
Which
You
one's
just did.
Article 5?
They did. Does anyone want to second it?
Which one's Article 5?
The one I just talked about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
You want to second it, or are we just going to hang here?
yeah, I'll second it. I'm looking for it on my computer.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Same vote, 3-2.
Thank
But
you.
you did a nice job, and you put a lot of work into it.
Yes.
Well, I hope you can reconsider over the next 2 weeks. You've got a lot of time to look
It's
this
only a
over.
recommendation, and a
Right.
lot of people heard it, so it was very, very well presented, too. All right, future use of the 101 Mill Road property, which is number 7.
Yeah, I would recommend that we defer voting on that, since there's been no activity really from that committee. They've met once since they were here. We'll be meeting again later this week, but we really don't have any new information on that. So,
Agree with
I will
that?
second.
I agree.
What does defer mean?
I mean, we can vote on it at
We can
the,
vote-
meeting right
At
before
any
town
time.
meeting.
You know,
or-
like,
or
we can
not at
have a
all.
meeting
Or we
half
can
an
make-
hour before the
Or we
meeting.
can make no
It's not like-
recommendation.
Brought up at the finance committee that you couldn't have a meeting like that. Is that,
We always
They're
have.
different than we are.
No, the town meeting will start at 7:30. Traditionally, the finance committee and the board of selectmen meet at 6:30
Right.
before the meeting to take up any unresolved business or actions that may pertain to the meeting. For example, an earlier article, if we were able to reach agreement with some of the unions, we would take that up and ask for recommendations by the committees.
And would
And
be
similarly,
posted.
what Pat's saying here is if if there's additional information from the 101 Mill Road people, that could be considered by the board, and then in time for a vote for presentation, an hour or hours later at the town meeting, depending on what time the article gets taken up.
has there been any discussion anywhere about anything more than what they presented when they were here?
During the
No,
meeting,
they can-
they did, but they have not brought any, like I said, they still had a lot of work left to do. And they were they were working to get some,
Historically, we've done this many times.
All right.
And it's, they make them up with something out of okay? Let's see.
Are we going to vote on it?
I don't think we need
You
to vote to
don't- you
defer.
wanna
Already
vote to-
voted on it, yeah.
We'll just table it.
Okay.
Number 9, relocate the DPW maintenance operations to Alpha Road. You were gonna come up with another.
Gary Persicetti's here this evening. I did present for you a financial summary, because the question became, and you have it in your packets and it's there on the screen, of, what additional funding availability is there at town meeting to consider this article, because there was discussion about should we do it in one phase as opposed to two phases. And as you can see on the spreadsheet, there would be, the town will be leaving the town meeting at this point with $1.4 million in available levy capacity. And then Gary Persketti's here, and he can come up to the microphone and give you the understanding of what the additional cost would be to do this in one project as opposed to doing it in phases.
Good evening, Gary Perschetti, DPW Director. I'm going to pass out a short presentation. And then
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's right.
I wish, yeah, too bad we didn't get this.
Thank you.
I wish we had gotten it.
Good evening. The top page is basically just showing you that we had looked at 2013 when there was a citizen petition that was coming through to move forward the next phase of moving the highway maintenance division over, which we had pulled that year based on other needs. And if you just extrapolate out the cost of other DPWs during that, you would see that ours still falls in line, but you can also see that from 2013 to now, the estimated rise in cost in the entire project is almost $2.4 million. If you flip the page, you'll see that the first two items are Phase 1 and Phase 2, which are complete, which put us in the building roughly 3.5 years ago. The one we're seeking, of course, is the vehicle maintenance. I know we're looking for $1,186,008 if it's approved at town meeting. The number next to it, the $1,463,271, for a total of $2,649,279, would bring the mechanics totally over to Alpha Road. If you look the next page, you'll see that the estimate here for the $1,186,000 that you're looking at, that will make it so that the roof over 6,000 square feet of this building will be raised to be able to put the trucks on the lift and work on them. It will cutting the doors that are needed. It will structurally make that portion of the building sound. We'll dig up 6,000 square feet of floor, put drainage in it, and pour a thicker concrete to support the trucks. And basically, that's it, with some little bit of lighting and electrical. So it will not physically move the mechanics over, okay, with that amount of money. And I just wanted to make that clear, but it would set us up for the next phase no matter how it goes. Because until you raise the roof, basically for the purpose of what it's supposed to be used for, it just can't be done.
So effectively, the DPW will still be, and part of it will still be on Richardson.
It'll stay on Richardson Road, yes, and we would continue to use that space as just storage space at this point, because you couldn't put lifts in there and put the trucks up. So if you were to flip to the next page, which shows you the entire 11,550 square feet, which is the designated space for the highway maintenance mechanics division, if the 2.6 was spent, it would do all of this work and it would put us in that building in one phase. So you'd have your 3 heavy-duty maintenance bays, a welding bay, a light-duty maintenance bay. You'd have a small engine repair and open shop. You have your parts and fluids room, your maintenance staff support space. You'd have your roof raised over the 4 bays, your new concrete slab at heavy-duty maintenance bays, new heating, ventilation, and you would have your mezzanine for storage. Yes.
What is the cost not, is there associated cost not to do it now? To delay it? Is there a cost that we're gonna bear because it's not all done in
Well,
one phase?
I mean, yeah, it's the same cost we bear every time we postpone. It's roughly 4% a year compounded for every year that you don't do it. That's why you see that this $14 million project became 16.352. I mean, clearly, every time you delay, especially now, I mean, structural steel is one of the things that's not going down at all in pricing.
So about, is it around 60,000, would you say, gross? The 4% of the whole, of the second part? Would that be about
I'm sorry,
$60,000? That 4% of the additional amount to finish it, is that around $60,000? Will be the additional cost?
No,
4%?
no. Yeah, what I'm saying is if you, the cost to bring them over is the 2.6 million.
Right, but if we delay the second part till next year, let's say,
Yep,
we
It's
lose,
it's-
it costs us 4%.
right,
that
so it's
incremental.
probably about 90,000, but then, of course, you have your soft costs that have to be added back in.
And is there an intangible benefit of getting them out of Richardson Road, that Richardson Road becomes available for X?
The dogs.
I wouldn't turn around and say we're looking to get totally out of Richardson Road. I think everybody is very well aware that the land that the new DPW is built on at 9 Alpha, most of the parcel that we have is wetlands, which means we can't run certain operations, which is staging of a lot of goods. We still mine sand at Richardson Road as well. As you know, we use the brick building on the right to house 4 sanders, because we made our operation so much easier and cut about an hour off the sanding operation by having the 2 salt sheds. So we run 4 sanders out of North and the rest out of Alpha Road, which has changed that operation a lot. But from a point of view of DPW operation itself, having the mechanics over at Alpha Road will give us more time back, because what happens now is if 7 or 8 pieces of equipment are starting up that morning to go out, 2 of them don't seem to want to run, or there's a problem with it, you have to bring the mechanic over from Richardson Road, and anyone knows if that's at 7:15 in the morning, it's not a 5-minute ride. So you have to come over, you have to assess the piece of equipment. Sometimes you have to get a wrecker, tow it down so you can put it on the lift. As well in the winter operation, because of the size of the plows, the size of the trucks, if you blow a line, our machine to make the lines is down at Richardson Road again, so you're backtracking at least 2 times to do that. So the inefficiency is just terrible.
So in addition to the 80,000 or so, is inefficiency costs that go along with it as well?
Yes. And I mean, we're using figures of what happens. I mean, we can't estimate at all what can change in the way of goods in a year. I mean, everybody's seen it in this industry lately, what has happened to elevators and the price of them. I mean, right now that's not happening with lifts, but you just don't know what some things are made out of.
The site on Richardson Road, is there wetlands over there as well?
Yes, there is. There's some to the
Wells.
right. There's a little bit to the right and some in the back. There's a street runs behind it. But there's quite a bit of usable land at Richardson Road.
Aren't there wells nearby?
There's wells on that land, yes. Mm-hmm.
That should start it.
Just looking at, is there a future development use of that land in addition to if you're not there anymore?
It's the only piece of municipal-owned land that's not, of any significant size, that's not held in conservation or restricted status. So, for example, if someday the town needed to build a new school at a different location, or if the town needed some other municipal purpose, that's the only piece of parcel of land that the town has that isn't, restricted in terms of its development.
So
And
if-
so that's
if-
why we put a dog park there and have no particular use, recognizing that, we can't foresee things that may be needed 50,
Right,
so
but what I'm
years from now.
saying is, what I mean is that If you're totally out of there, is there an ongoing cost to us? We have to maintain the existing building, or?
There would be no day-to-day operations out of there, but I think as Gary's explained, there would be utilization of the site. In addition to that, the Council on Aging parks
Yes.
vehicles there and
Three
so forth.
buses
We still have to
parked
heat
there.
it and
Right, but
power
it's
it,
Yeah, it's minimal.
at
Yep.
minimum.
Yeah, you wouldn't be doing it for body temperatures, you'd just be doing it low temperatures for equipment.
And is it body temperatures now that you're heating for?
Yes.
So you've got basically 2 municipal sites that you're heating.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry, how long would it take to do all of this?
I would venture to say from the beginning to end would probably be roughly a year and a half.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I got some. There's really no benefit if you only do one part of it. It gets built, that's it, but there's no benefits. And you still have the 4%.
Right, it's like building a school and having nobody to put, no
Right,
teachers to
right,
run it.
exactly. Waiting to put someone in it. What I'm concerned about is we've been doing this project for a long time, and I supported it originally when it came out. But I think that we spent a great deal of money on roofing, infrastructure for the roofing. And now we have to go in and remove part of the roof we fixed and make it bigger. Why wasn't the engineering so that you knew that in the next phase you were going to have to do that?
Because, Bob, you wouldn't want your roof to leak for the 3.5 years that we were there.
Oh, if there's nobody there.
No, we're using the space as
Oh,
storage.
you are using
but
the
you
space.
cannot use it for what its intended uses.
What do
As
you
a
do?
matter of fact, right now, we're storing the truck for the telemedia.
Oh, okay.
In their operation is run on. When they went from their old truck to the new truck, that's where they had the ability to work on both of them side by side, move everything over,
Yeah, yeah.
and get it all
Well,
ready.
that's a short
so they've
term.
been
That's gonna be a
sharing-
short term
Well,
thing.
right now, they're housing it there because it
I just
doesn't
think,
fit where it goes.
you know, I just think of it like a homeowner. Maybe I shouldn't, but you know, I want to put a big addition on my house, but my roof isn't too good. So do I go replace the roof, or do I do the addition and then put the new roof on? It's like money.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I would think based on your situation and cost, you do your roof so that you're not having leaks and preparing yourself. And if it's 3 years later out that you have the money for the addition, you're going to raise a portion of that roof and
Yeah.
do it.
But then you got to pay for it again.
Oh, yes, I mean, but there's a cost to everything that you don't do once.
Right.
We
That's it
talked
for me.
briefly at the last meeting about what would what the mechanism would be if we wanted to fund the whole thing now. Can you go over that again?
Yeah, as I depicted on the screen, when we heard from the assessors at the tri-board meeting, they noted that we had an extraordinary increase in new growth as a result of the property re-inspections across the community and that being a revaluation year. And at this point, the information that we have is that right now, everything that was proposed to be funded at town meeting, we would have $1.4 million in excess levy capacity that we could do a one-time project such as this and not seek any relief under the provisions of Proposition 2.5. So that's what we have. And then the question became, well, what would happen in future years? When that became the funding mechanism for the modular classrooms that the board discussed earlier, the $7.9 million plus the operating costs. But again, if that project were to move forward, we wouldn't see the impact of that on the repayment of the loan and operating costs until fiscal year 18, which is well over a year from now. So that's why a one-time project like this could slide in and be fully funded, if that's what the community chose to do.
Is the modulars a one-time expense?
No, but it's a one-time project, but that's being borrowed over a 15-year period. So therefore, you have debt service that would eat into that $1.4 million every year. But
Okay.
and then you also have the operating costs of the instruction and other aspects that would eat the
And then
balance of that.
operational, yeah.
Exactly, that would eat the balance of that cost.
There was considerable discussion about this at the finance meeting itself,
Yes.
although they just recommended to just go with it as it is in the end.
So this is, with the 1.4 assumes you're taking the 1.5 million for this, is that correct?
Yeah, no, right now we're seeking 1,186,000. If you wanted to do it in one project, then you would have to add the 1.4 on top of that. So that would basically make it a $2.6 million project.
Could there be a savings in like deploying and stuff like that? What would you call that? Not startup costs, but there's another word for it in construction.
Mobilization.
Yeah, like
Mobilization and
mobilizing and stuff like
demobilization,
that.
yes.
We'd save money probably
could, yeah.
by doing
Right.
the whole thing.
Right. It's the same thing, you have to re-engage the yeah, exactly.
I just hate building something and then waiting to the next town meeting to have to
Well, we don't know if
appropriate.
it's the next town meeting. If you remember, thought we were going to do this a couple of years ago, and then the
And-
financial
Right.
crisis came, and
Well, we
then,
could be 2 years.
right, exactly, and this is the
Probably glad he did
first,
the roof at this point.
Right,
He'd be sitting in a
Yeah,
puddle of
that's
water
right,
this
that's
week.
right.
right, this is the first opportunity that we have, but we don't know what future years are going to bring.
So what would it take to bring that to fruition at this point?
It would just be the motion that I would make at town meeting would basically to seek $2.6 million as opposed
Instead
to
of what's here?
1.2 million, yes. And I'm perfectly prepared to do that.
Now, that's going to be harder to sell than the 1.86.
Right, but the town had had a very good year. This has been dragging on for a long time. It's the ability to get it done and move forward, and then take it off the table.
I think the only reason it's on the table is because it was suggested, right, by somebody here,
Right.
that, because the finance committee had passed over the next one, rejected the next one, and I think you, Laura, said something about,
Right. Well,
we might, it would, I think that's the reason that we
Right,
we
yeah.
changed.
And I'm not proposing that change. I mean, you still have that $500,000 in play with
No,
the
no,
with the
I'm not saying
stabilization
you
fund,
are.
the
I'm
tax
just
levy
saying-
that the finance committee didn't support, yes.
But everything,
What a finance committee.
Right,
They don't want to give the taxpayers a rebate.
I'm only saying that that's why this
I wasn't
this
picking on
discussion
you.
was. No, I didn't say you were, Bob. I got a break tonight. I mean, I got lucky. So far.
Yeah,
But,
so
I mean, the
far.
night isn't over yet, so.
I'm in good spirits.
I mean, I liked seeing the big number that we had in excess levy capacity. So I wonder if we could take, not put as much into the general stabilization fund
Yeah.
and
Well,
leave
Well, the
more.
problem, that's not just putting money into the general stabilization fund. That 747,000, $500,000 of that is the fact that we've got to reserve funding to fund contracts when they're settled. So it's not just saving money, it's recognizing the fact that when the tax rate gets set in December, we have no ability to go back and raise the levy because of the fact that the tax rate is set. So that's money that we realistically, on a financial planning purpose, have to set aside going forward. So
How
that's,
much is it?
it'll be $500,000. Because again, right now, we have 9 unions on the town side that we have not settled any contracts
What
with.
happened to stabilization not being used for
No, it's
recurring?
parking it there, Bob. We can't, our bylaws prohibit us from funding a departmental appropriation
I
in
know
advance
that.
of a settlement.
I know that.
So what we have to do is we have to set that money aside so that when the settlement does take place, we have someplace to draw it from.
Didn't know that was the function of stabilization. I thought
It is
stabilization
a-
was in case of a rainy day problem and
No,
the roofs blow off.
No, under the Mass General Law, stabilization funds can be used for any legal, lawful purpose. And what we've done in the past, in these previous situations where we don't have contracts settled, is recognizing that they will be funded and will have to, and they generally have funded retroactively, we set money aside to meet that obligation, much like we happened before this
did this
board
last year.
8 months ago when we settled the police contracts after
Right.
2.5 years.
And we took it out of
We got
stabilization.
a stabilization because we had to set
Because
that money
we
aside.
put it there, though.
Because we
It's
put it
not-
there,
yeah, we put it there
recognizing that
ahead,
it's a
and
cost
then
you're
we took it
incurring
out.
right now. The fact that we're 3
Right.
months in without
No,
a
I
contract,
understand that
we're
part.
incurring a cost even though we're not realizing it. And so that was the point of putting it to stabilization, recognizing that we can't legally put it into a budget, but we can at least put it into an account so that when the settlement does take place, it can get funded.
One of the things about if you're giving Public Works the money, they've never had any picadillos in their funding, as the school department often does.
Any problems, you mean?
That's
Yeah.
right, that they're usually on the money and it goes
Yeah.
exactly where it's supposed to go.
Yeah. They're a hardworking
School,
group,
as
too.
Laura has pointed out, is somewhat questionable.
I think they look for some of the easier answers, and often the easiest answer is to throw money at it.
So you want to make you want a motion for the 2.6? Is that what we're going to,
I guess so,
Yeah.
yeah.
carries? And if it doesn't, we go back to
Is-
the original?
Is there a way, Paul, we could go for the 2.6 in a way so that if they didn't vote for it, we could supplement it with the
Lower
1.86?
number?
Well, yeah, I mean, if the 2.6 fails at town meeting,
Yeah,
you can take up another motion to do the 1.186.
even
Yeah.
though it's been defeated.
Yeah, because you're still under that article.
will
You're still under that article.
Starts an amendment.
Or the other way to do it, somebody can make an amendment to defeat it, to reduce it, and it'll fail, and then you're still
Yeah.
back to where you started. So yes,
Yeah.
it can be done under the article.
So
Or it could be
maybe-
amended the other way,
I
too.
was just gonna say, maybe we should amend
Oh,
it
the other
to the
way.
2.6,
Yeah,
right? And then if that doesn't go, then you just go with the original number.
right,
Yeah, that seems more,
right.
I think it makes more
Logical.
sense to start
think
with the higher number. It's easier to
Yeah.
amend down than it is
as
to
an
amend
amendment,
Right.
because
Well, I
if
don't
it's an
think
amendment.
legally we can amend up, so.
Right,
Sure you
if
can,
it's an
because
amendment.
the warrant article doesn't speak to a dollar amount, it's a
Oh,
sum of
that's-
money,
that's-
so we can legally amend up
Oh,
from the motion
But I agree with Pat, it's easier to go down than it is.
to go up.
I do too.
You want to make the motion?
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 9 in the amount of $2.4 million.
2.6.
2.6?
2.6.
2.6 million.
2.6, sorry.
I'll
Made up.
second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Thank
I've
you.
got nothing.
Thank you.
2.6.
Above my better judgment.
Still, we got the extra money.
6, okay. The next one is number 10, free cash to reduce property tax levy, $500,000.
I'll make a motion to approve Article 10 to reduce the tax levy by $500,000.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. And let's see, the other one is the General Stabilization Fund. Was that
Yep, that's the one we were just talking about,
Yep.
yep.
right? So,
So I'll make a motion to approve Article 11 to move $747,861 to the General Stabilization Fund.
I'll second.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Zoning bylaw, Route 129 industrial overlay,
Wait, oh, yeah, sorry.
right? That was,
Do you want to,
Next
do you
one,
want
right?
to skip and do the dog one first? Is that
I
what you were gonna
know,
suggest?
I think that the overlay people,
the other thing is
Had a
if
lot
that
of
takes
late
a lot,
nights
maybe we should
lately.
do the next one and then come back to the
Sure,
overlay.
you want to let these people
Yeah.
go home?
Yeah,
They've been waiting very
Patient
patiently
people.
for almost 2 hours.
I think let's do that. Let's go with number 14, general bylaw amendment, increase the kennel maximum number of dogs. Any
Phil, if you
discussion?
want to go up and explain why this is being sought and how it would actually take place over at the location, because that was
great.
the discussion from the
Tell us
last
how many
meeting.
dogs you have.
All right, I would be happy to do that. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Manager Cohen. For the record, my name's Philip Iliopoulos. I'm an attorney here in Chelmsford at 9 North Road, representing PetSmart, the Chelmsford location that's at the Chelmsford Mall on Chelmsford Street. Joined today by Chris Lang, who is the district manager for PetSmart, as well as Michelle Prescott, who is the hotel manager, correct? So just by way of some history, and they're here to answer any specific questions about the operation of the business, just to give you a brief 1-minute history. When the project was developed back in 2010 and the building opened, it opened with slightly over 100 kennels. It was inspected by the town. The applicant wasn't aware of a limitation in another section of the bylaw. There is a section of the bylaw, not in the zoning bylaw, but in the town's general bylaws, that limits kennels to 25 per business. The applicant wasn't aware of that. I don't think the town was aware specifically about it. It was inspected. It was OC was provided. Every year, it's gone through its annual inspections. The dog officer goes and inspects the facility on a yearly basis. And I think in 2015 or right around that time, there was sort of a realization that, oh, wait a minute, there is a restriction in the town's bylaw. And so the recommendation was made to PetSmart to seek to change that bylaw. So we've been working over the last several months with the town manager and Evan Belansky to come up with a revision to the bylaw that would not only help this business, but I think some other veterinarian and dog daycare type businesses in town that may also be exceeding, unbeknownst to themselves, this 25 dog limit. So with that being said, if the board has specific questions about the operation, I think rather than hear me continue to speak on it, I could get you the answers directly from the people running the facility. Yes, Mr. Diggs?
Let's say that there's 100 dogs over there any given day.
Yes.
Why are they there? Is there this reason, that reason?
Yeah, there's two main components, and Michelle can certainly speak to it. There's a daycare component where people like myself will drop their dog off to a daycare facility. The dogs play together for the day, and then you pick them up at the end of the day, much like we do with children. So that's a large component of the business. And there's also a boarding component where we're going on a weekend trip that we can't bring the dog to, and so we want to board them for the weekend, overnight, et cetera. So those would be the two different.
So it has nothing to do with for sale?
No.
Totally different?
Correct. This is more for clientele that are either bringing their dogs for the day or at night.
Is there you say where they mingle, happily mingle?
Yes.
Is that inside, outside?
Why don't I bring Michelle up or Chris to talk about it? Just want to introduce your names for the record.
Absolutely. So for the record, my name is Chris Lang. I am the district leader for PetSmart.
Michelle Prescott, I'm the hotel manager for PetSmart. And currently we do offer boarding. We do day camp, but it's not daycare like two-legged people, it's day camp for four-legged dogs. And we're open as early as 7 a.m. for our customers, as late as 9 p.m. for pickup. Our camp is 100% indoors for safety reasons. Dogs can't get loose, they can't, go under fences. I know that's happened in some surrounding towns and kennels. You also, the dogs aren't in the elements, so everything is 100% indoors. All our doorways are double-doored for safety and things like that. Currently, we have a max capacity of 56 for a day camp. We have 4 camp rooms. We can only have a certain number of, dogs in each camp room with a person for safety reasons. So we're trying to ask that we can exceed the 25 because our business is, expanding. About 25 to 30% of our business are Chelmsford customers alone.
So effectively, you're not going to go right to the 100. If we do pass that, you're not going to go right to the 100. That's not the reason. It was just an arbitrary figure that you figured you wouldn't have to keep coming back if your business continued to increase. So
that's correct. Yep, that's correct.
That's all. Thank you.
I have a question about the actual definition of a kennel. Is it considered kenneling if you don't keep them overnight?
Mm-hmm.
It is, okay.
Do you currently have enough room to go to 100?
Yes.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've got dedicated 6,000 square feet towards this operation.
Oh, wow.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think sometimes during the summer months when you have a lot of vacations and people are boarding their dogs overnight, you could hit that 100 limit, maybe an overnight period during the peak months.
Yes, we turn customers away because we are, so busy, so that's not a problem. But we only hit the peak numbers for boarded guests, typically summertime, Thanksgiving, Christmas, school vacation weeks, things like that.
Now, when you have a national model for a facility, is this in keeping with that national model type of facility, or are you under or oversized? In other words, when you go to a typical PetSmart location, even newer or what have you, is this sort of conforming with that type
We're
of?
smaller, actually. Okay. So about when we opened, about 6 years ago, they started doing smaller hotels. So there's other PetSmarts that, have, I don't know their exact numbers, I don't want to quote, but they are larger than we are. They could also have more playrooms than us, plus more kennels. So we are on the smaller scale, believe it or not. 100 probably sounds like a lot to you guys. But everything flows really well, and it's a lot of dogs, but it definitely have enough space for it. Yes.
Sorry. You mentioned there were a number of dogs per person. What is that ratio that's for safety?
Sure. So we have 1 dog per 15. One person, per 15. Yes. The opposite.
We actually have, there's 4 day camps.
Yeah.
3 of them can house 15 free-ranging dogs. and we would have one associate in that camp. So we've got 3 camps that can hold 15, one camp that can hold 11.
And they're never left unattended, so there's always an attendant in the camp room with them.
They stay overnight, right?
Not all of them. Some are there just for the day. Yep.
You
And
have
then
to
we
have
have
someone there to.
we have an overnight person. He's
Yeah,
working, cleaning, and monitoring the pets on the hour every
Okay.
hour.
And we currently employ about 25 employees just dedicated to the hotel. During peak seasons, as Michelle said, we only hit or even near capacity during the summer months, where we could get in excess of 30 employees there.
Oh, wow.
I have a lot of college students, things like that, that work for me in the summer. Then they come back for Christmas for the extra help, which is fabulous. So it does work out.
Do they go into cages?
They're kennels, so it depends. We have all different options. You should come down and see it. It's pretty nice.
We're doing this free advertising.
No, so
Sure.
it's not, they're not like a kennel you would see in somebody's home. So some are 4 feet by 4 feet, 3 solid walls and a thick wired front door. Some are suites. We have 11 of those. So those are 3 solid walls, TV.
Live together? Or?
Those are big.
How about
Only if they're from the
cohabiting?
same family. They
Only
can
if they're
stay
in the
together.
same family.
Yes, it's very strict,
They have to be in
yes.
a
Bob, you want to check in sometime?
No dogs allowed.
But
I
they're
got 2
not.
dogs. Maybe they want to stay together. You know?
They can. But it's not like going into, when you envision like a humane society from years ago, it's not chain link fences or anything like that. It's very nice.
Oh, I have a couple more questions. You said that this is, we didn't realize this for 5 years after operation. What were the max dogs that you had in there at one point and we didn't get complaints about? Just,
Well, they said they got 56
Yeah,
now,
I think
didn't
it's, it would
So,
average.
Yeah, we regularly operate with 56 day campers. That's
Okay.
probably the average. During the peak seasons, during the summer months, July 4th, that's when our boarding facility actually gets occupied, and we could get up to about 100 dogs in the boarding facility.
Now, Paul, when I was on the planning board, we used to get this 55 money for parking spaces. Can we get one for every kennel in there? $100 a shot? Friends up back are laughing at me. I'm serious. Okay.
I just have one other question. It'd be, why did you not come up on Google when I was looking for a dog kennel 2 months ago? And
Really?
shame on you for whoever's doing your marketing, because
talk to Kathy.
I was desperate. And I didn't even see your names.
We would love to have you, and I apologize for that. We'll bubble that up, I guess.
Thank you.
Nothing came up for
should.
Chelmsford
Nope.
PetSmart, nothing.
Nope.
Really?
Yeah.
One last question. How do you screen them for disposition?
Yes, so when they come in the morning or in the afternoon, whenever they come in, we have to evaluate them. So we need to be able to physically take the dogs in and out of the kennel and be able to handle them. Some kennels, you don't need to have human contact. If the dogs aren't good with people, they have indoor-outdoor runs, so they can be left alone. We have to be able to handle them. So if we can't, put a collar on them, leash on them, touch them all over, check them for fleas, ticks, things like that, we can deny them right there at that time.
And we have.
And we have, yeah. It's for the safety of, the employees and the other dogs.
Okay. Anything else?
All set.
Make a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 14.
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
5-0.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Thank
Good luck.
you.
Time. Thank you.
Okay. Now we get to our last one, is Route 129 Industrial Area Amenities Overlay District. Anybody gonna make a presentation? Okay, I got it.
Okay, good evening. I am Evan Belansky, Director of Community Development for the town. With me tonight, there are 3 members of the Planning Board here and 1 member of the Economic Development Commission. Just a quick update. At the last week ago, Monday evening, I was here, appeared before you. You had indicated you wanted to defer until the Planning Board completed their public hearing process. Planning Board did complete their public hearing process on August 28th, which was last Wednesday. They voted unanimously, 7-0, to recommend adoption of the bylaw at town meeting. As part of that hearing, I have just one handout for you. So as that's going around, the bylaw itself is unchanged. One revision that the planning board did make at their last public hearing session was to amend the actual overlay district map. The revision is to include the red highlighted areas. Those two highlighted areas are specific to the height provision per section 195-146.1, which speaks specifically to properties that have directly abut Route 129 from Alpha Road to the Chelmsford Billerica town line. So we're here tonight to answer any questions you may have.
I have a question about the height. All right, it says 6 stories or 90 feet is the maximum, is that correct? Is that
correct?
Okay. Is the 90 feet the top of the roof, the bottom of the roof, the bottom of the top floor? Where's the 90 feet?
So under zoning, there is a specific height definition. It's fairly technical once you get into it, but the simplest way to describe it is from the ground elevation to the median roof, the median height of the roof. So you could have a flat roof, a pitched roof. What's the pitch? It's a case-by-case determination.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
During the many meetings concerning this topic, and included in the draft as it is, it refers, and there's been discussion concerning the CEIOD as it relates to this. And it seems that this really isn't the final say on anything, that the final say is the CEIOD. And maybe you can comment on, I know that there's been discussions about it where people have said that this project, that project was completed in a benefit of the town because of the CEIOD. But I see the CEIOD in some ways as a hindrance to this project, meaning that it's almost a gatekeeper, that you can get around it, but you're going to have to work to get around it, as opposed to doing a lot of work and coming up with a big plan, spending a lot of money, and then coming and getting it shot down. And maybe you can speak to that.
Sure. So the CEIOD is essentially the town-wide redevelopment bylaw that town meeting adopted. I believe it's almost 2 years ago. And in a nutshell, that bylaw singularly, unilaterally fixed all of the zoning deficiencies, soup to nuts, ranging from too many special permits to being too restrictive, being too prescriptive, being unpredictable and time-consuming for developers. So in a one fell swoop, it addressed all of those issues while creating a process that basically requires a partnership, a cooperative venture between the planning board being the regulatory authority on behalf of the town and the developer or the proponent. It forces the developer and the planning board, where there's an interest in approving a project, to have mutual benefits. So on the town side, it strengthens the planning board's regulatory position. They are the one and only regulatory authority as it pertains to a CEIOD project. Unlike previous CEIOD, very often the zoning board would be involved. So in this case, the planning board is the single permitting authority. It strengthens their position in the sense that they can negotiate as one entity rather than splitting the jurisdiction between two boards. On the developer side, CEIOD is beneficial because it provides expedited and streamlined permitting. It provides predictability in the sense that it's the regulatory timeframes that would ordinarily be be required by the board significantly sped up under CEIOD. So there's a variety of incentives on both sides. Procedurally, CEID is unique in the sense that the gatekeeper reference that you mentioned, there's this two-step process. Step one is essentially that gatekeeper position. Step one involves a conceptual preliminary plan review by the planning board. From the developer's perspective, they're able to get a quick, inexpensive gauge, essentially a straw poll from the planning board as to whether their concept plan is on the right path to approval. From the planning board's perspective, it gets the board in front of the applicant much sooner than later. So normally a developer would have to prepare 100% design plans. Very expensive, very time consuming. Under CEIOD, they can do a 10% or up to a 25% concept plan. It's more illustrative in nature. It's essentially an opportunity for the developer to provide a meet and greet and a sales pitch. What are the best qualities of the project? And it provides the planning board with an opportunity at a high level to say, yes, you're on the right track, and here's some areas in which we want you to pay further attention to if and when you come back to us. So I think as you heard through the 129 public hearing process, the board has referred to the CEID as being a successful bylaw for the upwards of probably 9 or 10 projects at this point, ranging from industrial to self-storage to residential. So that is the regulatory framework in which the Route 129 overlay will function. It's a lot, the CEIOD is a fairly lengthy bylaw to capture all of those provisions. It's simply referenced as 2 sentences within the Route 129 overlay bylaw. But the CEIOD would basically determine the process as well as the regulatory framework for which the planning board and the applicant will ultimately be judging a particular project.
But even though it's only mentioned very little, it really encompasses the whole thing.
It encompasses, with the exception of the specific provisions that are mentioned within the proposed overlay, all of the procedural provisions as well as the flexibility is contained fully within the CEIOD. So within this bylaw, and this is part of the challenge with zoning, the board during the hearing heard public comments about the lack of details regarding dimensional requirements, use tables, things that you would ordinarily see as part of a zoning bylaw. The CEIOD captures all of those details. That's where the dimensional table is located. That is where parking standards and landscape standards are located. That is where all of the performance standards related to how the board is required to judge and ultimately vote its decision. It contains all of the performance standards in which a developer needs to customize their project for planning board review and approval. So the CEID is the framework for the entire bylaw to work. Otherwise, this bylaw, as it was 3 years ago, was a 10-page bylaw. So in order to provide all that flexibility, streamlined and expedited permitting, this bylaw can be 2 pages, essentially due to town meeting approving the CEIOD bylaw 2
But it
years
still
ago.
has kind of the 10-page version attached to it in the end.
Oh, it's all there. There's no question. These 2 sentences, section 195, 147 of the proposed overlay, capture the meat and the teeth of the CEIOD 10-page bylaw.
So it's a way to not get overly complicated to the general public, let's say.
Correct.
During the discussions, which many people came in, there was a lot of passion on both sides at those meetings. There was reference, and it was done again tonight, reference of the existing people out there to enhance their properties, to attract more businesses to come to them. And I attended the one, in my time, breakfast meeting of existing holders of the properties. And I know that you've had others, but at that meeting, I didn't see any camaraderie among any of those people.
Correct.
That they would want to come together and work together. It was kind of a separate. And did you see any different in other meetings that you had, similar like that?
No. The characteristics of the park are very, very challenging on multiple levels. One of which is there's 723 acres made up of 70 different property owners. The properties that directly abut Route 129 that are fairly modern and have glass buildings and modern architecture, they're competing with one another. There's currently 600,000 square feet of vacant space there. Those particular 6 buildings are designed for single tenants. So they're going to have a very, very difficult time finding 600,000 square foot tenants to move to Chelmsford. And then they're left with what 300 Apollo finally did, which was, after an extended period of vacancy, having to demise over 100,000 square foot building to accommodate smaller tenants. The fact that we don't have a single large property owner or a master developer of a couple hundred acres is a significant challenge in that park. Our hope is that with the bylaw, with the passage of the bylaw, that EDC can then reconvene those property owners to try to work with them in a collaborative fashion, to rather than look at the 70 parcels as single entities, to begin to, again, with the strength and support of the overlay passing, to begin to look at it a bit differently. That maybe there are ways for a certain property not to view itself as being re-tenanted for traditional office, but maybe to reposition itself to serve as business amenities. So right now, they're all competing with one another, and they're all trying to target the same exact business.
Right. So wouldn't it be a priority to, if this does pass, to find that one, star, that one deep guy with the deep pockets, or one company that could take, be the lead?
That very likely will happen in a natural evolution. I think, as we've heard through the process, EDC is interested and willing to aggressively market the opportunity. So again, reaching out to the existing property owners is one form to do that. Marketing and branding the park to out-of-town entities is also another opportunity. But the starting point is getting the bylaw adopted to provide that opportunity. Right now, the conversations are, even with the existing property owners, if you sat through some of those roundtables, some of those property owners don't necessarily have the vision. But there have been people who are involved in the town process who are encouraging the town to be bold and have a greater vision than what might be out there right now.
I see, since I was part of your working group originally and part of most of the meetings that went on, I think you know that I've been critical of the fact that in the end, there is no single person who is going to go out and actually sell Chelmsford. And although it might be, from the surface, part of your job, I've been to enough meetings at night to know that you have no more time to give on anything, that your time is filled up. And so, I'm hoping that this is successful. I think it would happen sooner, as far as success, sooner than later, if we're willing to give the school department all this kind of money, $200,000 for a study, and $40,000 for this, and so forth and so on, that we would be well advised to spend some additional monies for a period of time. And I know Paul has addressed this at one of the meetings, that in the past we had someone kind of like this.
Tri-board meeting.
I'm sorry?
At the tri-board meeting.
At the tri-board meeting. to go out and actually be Mr. Chelmsford to the public and try to take the new rules and carry the banner forward. But it isn't part of this, and it isn't part of any companion bill. So I'm hopeful that it will be successful. We need to start now. We should have started before this, but better late than never. And I think that your team has done a good job.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to say?
I think it's a big crapshoot, personally. I agree with Selectman Biggs that you need someone, and you need someone with the fire in the belly to go out and not do anything else and just market the town of Chelmsford. And I think, I don't know what that type of job is worth today, but it probably wouldn't be a job that would be permanent. It would probably be, but we need someone who can tout us. We can make all the zoning bylaws we want, but we need someone that can market this and market it well. And you've seen, a lot of developments in other towns where things have been marketed well. I mean, someone spoke about Linfield at the planning board meeting, and I've been to that mall and the accompanying apartment complex. And they had a vision because they had someone that could make the vision. And I don't see the vision here. I really don't see the vision. I see, this idea that we can use CEIOD to solve all problems. And I don't happen to believe with that. I don't happen to believe in that. I'd be interested to know what the vote on the planning board was for this.
It said 7-0. 7-0.
It was 7-0? 7-0. Boy, how things have changed in a couple of years, huh?
We hashed out.
It's only.
Work on this on 3 minutes.
Yeah, I know, because there's only like 22 words in the article, right? That's what he said, right? And I have one more question. I hate to pick people out of the audience to ask questions, but I'd ask John Harrington, as the Business Association person, what his people think. Do they support this kind of thing, or will it ever be supported by them?
We're staying neutral on this. We have members that are on both sides of this issue. And we respect that, and we're just staying neutral on it.
But this puts the amenities in direct competition with everybody that's in the...
There was no testimony related to that at the
why
planning board
wasn't there?
public hearing.
When I was on the planning board, I got the same comment from John. We're staying neutral. But then when I started calling people on the Business Association, they turned out en masse, and that's part of the reason we postponed it, because there were a lot of people at that meeting.
If I may,
Yep.
Bob, we notified.
Identify yourself.
John Harrington, Executive Director, Chelmsford Business Association. We had a meeting about a month and a half ago. We notified our entire membership to come down at 110 for a meeting. We had about 30 people there, and we discussed these issues, and we left on a neutral.
No decision. Nobody was worried about a new hotel or a new...
We suggested if it does take place, that our members should be one of the first ones to try to open up something down in 129.
Right.
Especially the delis and the restaurants and so forth.
Right.
They'd be the first one to know that something has changed. But that's what we discovered there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. The only other comment I have... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, continue.
The only other comment I have is, make sure when you go to town meeting, you come in with a map that's much better than this and about the size of that board. Because you can't read the streets, you can't read anything in it. And even the one that was done as part of the EDC, you couldn't read anything. I don't even know where my house is on this, and I know I abut it.
We'll call a cab.
So I think, I think you should...
I can expand it to show the...
Yeah, expand it. I mean, I seem to recall one year they were doing something with the flood plan, and people came to town meeting, and they had little tiny things, and they were mad about it, because they couldn't see where their property was, so. That's it for now, thanks.
Laura?
I noted on one of the meetings that the planning board indicated that they had met with Chief Ryan and worked out some differences. Could you elaborate on that? Because it seemed to me that the chief was pretty rigid with his 75 feet limit, and yet I haven't seen that change on this bylaw.
So the planning board and the fire chief did have a good conversation. Essentially, the planning board wanted to meet face-to-face with the chief after his technical memo was read into the record, and it is fairly technical. The fire chief indicated that his jurisdiction is under the building code as well as the fire code, which has its own definitions of building height and things of that nature. So I think it was more educational in an FYI on his part. I think the takeaway from that conversation was that he said he would be comfortable with buildings up to 75 feet in height. The conversation from there, from the planning board, was that under zoning, heights, stories, the height of each story is not defined. So you could have a 4-story building that's 75 feet in height, or you could have a 6-story building that's 75 feet in height. And that, as written, 6 stories or greater would require a special permit. So I think the chief certainly understands what a special permit process entails as it relates to the fire department and any other town department being able to provide technical comment to the planning board. So although his particular technical items were not addressed specifically within the zoning bylaw, I think both the planning board and the chief have an understanding that the special permit process provides that level of protection in the event that there is a particular project that the fire chief has a particular or technical issue with. He can address that through the planning board special permit process. And as
Well, I guess my question would be then, if he's at... All right.
Just let that go, because
Thank you.
there is another answer.
Ms. Merrill, Ed Rue, member of the Vice Chair of the Planning Board.
Thank you.
It's a specific height detail. The chief measures height to the bottom, to the floor of the topmost floor. So you could have a 90-foot building, but if the top floor is at 75 or 70 feet, that meets his needs. Actually, his exact number, I believe, is 70 feet under the mass regulations. So it's 75 feet for the floor of the top floor. He was kind of okay. So that gets us to the 90-foot level for the roof.
Okay, so you would...
You figure the
be
floor
air conditioning,
being
everything.
75 and a 15-foot story, that gets you to the 90 feet.
I see.
Anyway,
Thank you.
just wanted to explain that. I've got some more
Appreciate
comments.
that.
George Zaharoulis, I'm clerk on the planning board. The other thing that came out of that was, if you notice, one of the other changes we made was on the residential aspect, 45 feet and 4 stories, which is basically what we have now. And that's because of public safety. And we didn't want to go to the 6 stories, so we made that change as well, based on Chief Ryan's comments. Because in a 6-story commercial building, no one's sleeping. They're awake. If something happens, they can get out. And if a 6-story residential situation, people sleep at night, and if something happens, we don't want a problem. Because his manpower in the center station, I believe, is 10 on a shift. He felt if they had gone higher in residential, they would need more manpower. So we made that change as well within our public hearing. So we brought the residential aspect back down to 45 feet.
You know, maybe I can address that also, Laura. When he made his original written report, I believe he referred to the fact that he would need 2 more men. He'd need 2 more men if it was a high-rise. that's over the 70 feet with the.
It's not over the
You would
4
need 2 more people.
stories.
And after I talked to him, and explained that, and as he got to talk more about it, the demands of his department for, let's say, this 6-story building, his demands would be greater on, let's say, a 250-unit apartment building, because there are 250 chances of getting a call as opposed to more like 1 chance of getting a call in this high-rise. So his manpower wasn't keyed only to the high-rise, it's keyed to this whole area. If they were able to double or triple the amount of space, then his needs would increase just because of that many people are out there and that many businesses. So it was related to 2 things. One was the height, and I think that most of the dialogue, and I may be wrong, that was involved with the planning department had to do with height continually. But it was also due to the chief's comment about his manpower needs. But it would be true of police too. But if you could triple the amount of volume out there, I think the town would be inheriting additional monies to help support fire and police and public safety in general.
Well, I think that becomes my concern. If we're only talking about this small area that could grow there, and yet we may have to staff just for this small area, are we going to collect enough revenue in this area to cover what we're hoping it's going to solve all of our problems, but now it's also going to increase our expenses, and what is going to be the net of our realization?
Do you have the figures for what we receive in tax revenue from this area as a gross amount right now?
I do.
That small area is about 100 acres, I think, isn't it?
Well, he's looking for that. Let me keep talking.
I love when you talk,
He can get
Mr.
ready.
Russo, please.
The small area we're talking about is for the tall buildings. We've picked in a very limited area along 129. Basically, the 4-lane area of 129, plus the little parcel across Route 3 that's the gravelous loom operation. The rest of this bylaw applies to all of the industrial area. So there could be amenities, not that I envision any, but there could be amenities on Alpha Road, things like that. Somebody could build a Ruby's back there or whatever. So the bylaw, so the small area we're talking about is for the taller buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had the good fortune in my travels to run into, I'll leave it at 2 of the principals. And they're sort of waiting in the wings for us to do something because they want to do something with their buildings because they know it's not, they're not getting anywhere the way they are today.
So you have 2 principals that are thinking of building out to 6 stories?
No, they have,
anyone
they
coming
wouldn't.
into their property?
No,
Or-
they didn't tell me their plans. What they said was they like the idea of taller buildings and it might fit into what they want to do in the future.
Thank you.
And because what they might be doing is you might see amenities on the first floor and offices on the second, third, whatever floors. So you might have a mixed use. So what the zoning is trying to do is, we're not marketing it. The planning board's not marketing this thing. There needs to be, as Mr. Diggs said, another person marketing this. What we're just doing is setting the regulatory, we're trying to set the regulatory climate so that the 70-some property owners can realize something with their property, their individual property, improve it. A few of them will, and that's what we're hoping for, and we hope you support it.
Thank you.
Find your numbers? Yep.
So, just see where it is here. So $5 million of new CIP value equals $100,000 in new tax revenue.
That's provided they're full.
And so just to go back to the increased heights, the increased heights is a provision within the 2010 master plan. That master plan had a variety of sections: housing, economic development, community character, open space. And ultimately, those recommendations were an exercise in trying to balance, the town's characteristics and future vision. So this is one particular provision that it's applicable to, 8 or 9 properties. And I think it speaks directly to part of the branding and marketing effort, not just of the overlay, but of the office park, whether it's 10 years from now, 15 or 20 years from now. There's no market indication that just because a bylaw passes, that someone's going to immediately come to the planning board and propose a 6-story building. I personally don't believe the economics are there to justify that kind of investment right here, right now. That would mean a parking garage. I think the bylaw is going to evolve in a very systematic evolution, where you'll see small scale projects that will evolve over a long period of time. So I think this bylaw, again, is not a quick fix or a Band-Aid fix.
But ideally, you would like to see 7 6-story buildings in this area.
The bylaw is very strategic as it pertains to the town's geographic location along an interstate. It's already zoned for 4-story buildings. I think the authors of the master plan, as well as the planning board and EDC, view that as a very strategic provision that will allow the opportunity via special permit. So a part of that special permit is the town reserves the right to negotiate and ultimately deny. The courts have a long record of providing deference to the local approval or denying authority. So it's allowing the opportunity. It's not granting the right.
If we were to reduce this CID back to 4 stories, could the builder then come before the ZBA and ask for the 6 stories? Is that how that process would work? And that potentially we could allow a 6-story building anyway, with or without this bylaw based on that? Is that what I'm getting from all of this?
It would be through the CEIOD process to the planning board. Again, the sole and only reason to call out those 8 or 9 properties and treat them differently is because within zoning law, the development community and the court system believes that if a town means to say something, they say it. So in this particular case, by calling out those 8 or 9 properties and treating them differently as it pertains to the height of a building, it sends a message to the development community and ultimately to the courts, if it goes to appeal, that the town knew what they were doing from a strategic intent perspective. It didn't happen by accident or happenstance. That's why this provision can be drawn directly back to the 2010 master plan, a legitimate public planning process. So that's the link with being strategic in nature.
But someone could potentially request a 6-story building anywhere in Chelmsford and go through the proper special permit.
Through the planning board via special
Thank
permit,
you.
correct.
I happen to sit on that master plan, and one of the things that we talked about was the 6-story buildings along Route 3. Because as people come down Route 3, all of a sudden they notice that what's going on here. They can see it from Route 3. You have 7 parcels here. They're not very big parcels. What goes along with building a building and is parking requirements, landscaping requirements, and Bob knows the planning board really worked hard to make sure that landscaping was a priority. Parking to the rear of the building, landscaping to the front of the building, sidewalks put in. So a 6-story building, basically, instead of building one building of 100,000 square feet on 2 floors, you can take that and squish the footprint on the ground and go up 6 stories and still get you 100,000 square feet, or maybe a little bit more than that. And then with a parking garage, which we do have one in Chelmsford, and most people have driven by it, and planning board, again, went to great lengths to mask it with landscaping, is at Lowell General Hospital up in Drum Hill. So this is what the thinking was, is that these lots are not terribly big. They're not the size of what Cross Point is. So if you build a smaller footprint, you can get the parking in, you can get the necessary landscaping that will require, which will help with what Chelmsford is all about. There's a lot of landscaping. On 129, there's a lot of trees, a lot of grass. So we're very cognizant of that. The other part of this is that through the CEIOD, there's a section in there that talks about architecture. So a couple of projects that have come before us, one of them that's being built now, came before us, and we looked at them and said, it's not happening, not with the way it looks. When it's finished, it's going to look like an office building, but it's a storage facility. It's going to have a glass front all the way up, light naturally into the floors. So it's something that we have that in that CIOD, in that preliminary stage, when they come in with the conceptuals. If it's not what we like, we can tell them. We want the more light. We want the bigger windows. We want it to look LEED certified, a number of different things. So it all ties together. So I don't know if hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
Henry Crowley, Chair of the Planning Board. The only other thing I would add that the CID does is when somebody brings in a plan, they get the thumbs up, they go away, and then they come back. And when they come back and introduce their plan and get started, we have a time clock ticking so that they know that within so many days, they're going to have an answer, thumbs up, thumbs down, and move on. Because time is money for a lot of these big companies. And that's another reason why it's tied to this, is so that a project can get a thumbs up in 90 days. You can move on. We hope you support it.
One question, Evan. The tax revenue out of a building, any building, let's say it's 4 stories, is the tax revenue different depending on what the owner gets per square foot? Or is it the same?
I
Right now,
believe,
Chelmsford's very low, is,
Right.
$8.
I believe
or so.
one of the factors in determining assessed value is rental income.
So by
So if-
increasing,
so part,
by having some development out there, that makes it more valuable. All the property becomes more valuable. And that's a natural occurrence of getting more money, even if for those properties that don't get increased, because they're getting more money just because they're associated. It's like, you have a home and somebody builds a mansion beside you. Your property's going up because this mansion is beside you. Same kind of thing?
correct. We had talked about that in the tri-board meeting, where it's low rent. It's essentially a low rent district. It's value oriented. Every decision that's made out there, from a current property owner to a prospective business interested in locating there, it's all value driven.
So right now, it's basically Baltic Avenue on a monopoly board.
Correct. And so this overlay has a strategic intent to break that cycle, infuse new opportunities, new economic development opportunities that are not only good for that 723 acres, but would be good for the town as far as economic development, fiscal prosperity, job creation, being viable and competitive within the regional marketplace. It all ties itself together. Going back to the increased heights, that's viewed as a critical component of the larger vision. If the town wants to view itself as being proactively competitive in the regional marketplace and wanting to be on the radar screens of real estate developers, the big real estate development companies that are doing business in Linfield Marketplace or Westwood or Burlington, that's an enticing provision. It's also an enticing provision if the town wants to be a player in landing a big fish, a 200, 300, 400,000 square foot business. They're going to want to be in a tall building and have their name visible along Route 3. So the higher building height yes, it is very strategic in nature, just simply based upon its geographic location. It's a complementary piece to marketing and branding the overlay district as well as the economic development corridor of the town in the long term. Again, I don't necessarily see a 6-story building being built in the near future, but if the zoning passes, the opportunity would be there. And the scope and scale of these projects that have been referenced in other communities that have a regional geographic location are no different than Chelmsford. The only difference is that those communities chose to compete and opened themselves up to the opportunity of having proposals submitted for consideration.
Okay. I have a question.
Right.
To the EDC chairman. As part of your study, and I know you did a lot of it, you did a good job at it, I'll have to tell you. But were there any traffic flows or anything like that? Anything having to do with infrastructure? Because right now, all those people that feed that Kronos, or those 3 Kronos, come down Golden Cove Road, right? And for years, we've had a problem with people coming in and say, give us some relief. So I'm wondering if you address that.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board of Selectmen. My name is Donald Van Dyne, Chairman of the Economic Development Commission. And also, Bob, you find this interesting, I'm also a CBA member, if that matters.
I was one time.
You should become one again.
Retired.
Well, actually, as to your question, Bob, no, we did not look at the traffic flow. We did not take any traffic counts. That was not really the scope of what EDC would do. That would be on a development basis as you move through the process, and something that the planning board would address at the appropriate time.
Well, that's interesting.
What I can say, though, Bob, what's interesting, though, if you look, and you've been in town a number of years, if you look at what's happened down on 129, we at one time, we were at vacancy rates that were obviously much lower than now, right? But I can't go back in time when people were saying, well, traffic was really, really bad then, we should change things.
Right.
So now we're at 13% vacancy, heading towards 26%. Something needs to happen.
Right.
As per Glenn's comment, we're not on Baltic Ave. We drew the card, go directly to jail, do not pass go. All right? We're not getting out of jail until we unlock it, and this bylaw will do that.
Well, unfortunately, that was because we had Apollo and all those big companies in town.
Correct.
And they all either got acquired or went out of business.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
But
what we had back then, though, is we had a setting that would attract those businesses, right? So we had market demand. We don't have that now. That is what this bylaw is trying to address. We're trying to address the market demand that we learned from the brokers and from business owners, trying to create an environment that allows for live, work, and play. That's what this bylaw does, creates that market demand.
Is it your opinion that most of these people will come in looking for TIFs? Because what a TIF is for people watching TV is it's a reduction of their taxes based on the amount of the infrastructure phone?
The improvement.
Yeah, the improvements on the infrastructure.
Correct. Now, this is not something the EDC has addressed. That is a tool that the town has, that town meeting has. If they choose to authorize it, they can do so,
Right.
but that's not something we addressed specifically with the EDC.
You would take town meeting authorization.
Town meeting, right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all set? Are we all set for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of Article 13.
Do we have a second?
We need a second.
No. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was
Oh,
gonna-
all right, discussion?
Discussion.
I'm sorry.
I thought that's what we just had.
Oh, no, sorry, I just would say that I.
Discussion after the second.
Yeah, don't we always
That's
do
right.
this?
Yes,
I'm
we
trying to
do.
get this process down, you keep changing on me. I would just like to say that I appreciate everything that the EDC has done. I am 100% on board with this, except for this height allowance to the 6 feet. And I've, for the last 5 years that I've been involved with the town, it seems like that seems to be the big sticking button with the residents, is this height versus all these other things that we want to be able to do with this. I think it's great to, you know, put some businesses in the lower levels, get more traffic going in there. And I have trouble supporting this, knowing how many people in this community are dead set against the height restriction of 6 feet. But if it were back down to 4 feet, I would be on board 100%.
Okay, any others?
You may want to put on, they may want to put on their giant plan,
On the map.
on the map, the area that the tall buildings would be in specifically, and highlight that particularly.
Go ahead, Bob. What?
I just want to make a remark before I vote against this, and that is that this is my neighborhood, okay? And people in Precinct 1 and Precinct 4, for the most part, do not agree with this. We had a lady in this afternoon. She's been in several times before. Tonight, I mean. She came in and spoke earlier. She might still be out there. Yes, they see. Oh, no, another lady. But this is my neighborhood, and you know, I don't see any of this kind of industrial activity going on in anyone else's neighborhoods that sits on this board. So just keep in mind, the reason I'm voting is for my precinct.
You can put a 6-story building up in my backyard if you want. I don't care.
Well, you got the dog park down the street there.
Yeah,
so
well, it's all right. I'll share that with you too.
You want to do a multi-story dog park?
Okay, so we
We're gonna
have,
need a multi-story dog park pretty soon.
Good.
I've seen the traffic
Good.
over there.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We're in discussion. Did we end the discussion?
No, I'm all set.
All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
3-2, baby. Nice work, fellas.
Thank you. I spilled the water.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the August 1, 2016 meeting minutes as presented.
Second?
Any discussion?
Was that there?
Yes.
Yep. I was there.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Now we need a first questions? Oh, no,
No.
referrals. Selectmen, all right, you, Glenn,
No.
nothing? Ed?
Nothing.
You, any referrals, Mr. Joyce?
Just a reminder for the town manager to check on that property on.
Yeah, he's already, you have the answer. Mark Dupel sent a
Oh.
response during the meeting this evening.
Did you send it to here?
Yeah.
Oh.
There are no
Oh, my-
violations. There are
oh,
no
my-
violations.
No violations?
You can read the message, or I can read it to you if you like me to.
No, that's fine. I'll get back to the woman that called me.
Mhm.
God, if that was next to me, there's a piece of property, it looks like they're doing a body shop business in their front yard. But,
The vehicles
It's
are all
not a high-rise
registered,
body shop.
and the vehicles are all well, you'll see the message. The vehicles are all
okay, I'll read it.
registered.
I'll read it when I get home.
All right, so you have any other referrals?
No.
Laura?
I just had one note that I was on the town website this weekend, and I noticed that all the town meeting reps, or actually everyone's phone numbers and emails have been taken off the site, and you can't find out how to contact anyone anymore. So
How many reps are still there? It's the other committees that are
No,
not.
they're there, but there's no longer a space with the email and the phone number, so it's just your picture and what committees you belong to. And so I couldn't contact you if I wanted to, I don't have your phone number.
Oh,
So
what did we
this is a-
pay? What do we pay for that website?
It's an annual fee, but which in the renewal, the update was part of the annual fee, but I don't believe I will check, we'll look into that.
Please
Maybe-
do,
maybe
because
it's
I
just
mean,
not-
as we getting close to town meeting, people may want to contact their town reps, and now they just get a smiley picture.
Did you like it?
The new website? I love the website. I just, every day it gets better.
Oh,
You must say, it's all there. I just pulled it up. All the
Yeah.
town meeting reps are there.
It's-
Address, phone numbers,
I
It's
went
the
to
other,
email
both
address.
it's the
sites.
other committee that you can't.
Town meeting reps are
So
here.
I think part of it is how you get to the links. The links aren't always, because I went through to like appointed.
Boards and committees,
I went to
town meeting
appointed-
reps.
No, I went to appointed officials, and then it just goes through to nothing. And I went through another link. And I've noticed the calendar is the same way. You go to the calendar, and sometimes you go in and you can get to the agenda, but sometimes you can't get anywhere from there, and you have to back all the way out and go circulate around through another link. So I think some of the links might not be logical.
We can look into that. but-
Thank you. I wasn't able to find, I was trying to make a few phone calls this weekend, and I could not find it the way I was
Who
negotiating. it.
manages the website? Trish?
Trish does, yeah.
Any other discussion, Laura?
I'm good, thank you.
I don't have any. Any press questions? Okay. Well, I guess we need a motion to adjourn
Yep.
to executive session.
I'll make a motion,
Yep.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session for purpose of strategies with respect to collective bargaining, not to return to open session.
Aye. Second, and then aye?
Aye.
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 Good night. Thank you.